Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Before we get into my guest today, you know where we're going to start. The business side of the house. This episode is brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee. And you know how I do this. I go right to their website and I talk about the things that I see. The most timely thing that I see right now is they have on that rotating banner, new women's apparel and gear. Well, why would that matter? Because Mother's Day is right around the corner. And don't be an animal, all right? Get your mother something special. And you could shop there if you want, if she happens to be a fan of Black Rifle Coffee or coffee in general. What else is on there? Coffee bundles, where you can bundle things to drink coffee out of with coffee, to make coffee with. Explore the space in your imagination. And then, of course, you can join America's Coffee subscription, which has been supporting veterans since 2014. And that's the cool aspect of it. Depending on what you like, you can get it delivered on the frequency that you want with the blend or bean that you like. And it's everything you could possibly want or need for a coffee aficionado. And that's it. My guest today has been a friend of mine for well over 20 years. His name is Jack Carr. You all know who he is, right? Some people think of him as a Navy SEAL. Some people think of him as an author. And the reality is he is both. He is the author behind the James Reece series, which began, of course, with The Terminal List. And he's here today to talk about his most recent book, Only the Dead, which is getting ready to come out very soon. He's a damn good writer, a far better writer than I care to give him credit for. I assume he's using ChatGPT to make it so compelling, but I digress. Episode 284 with the man, the myth, the legend, Jack Carr.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
The phone is on silent.
Yeah, look at that. I even positioned.
Look at that. Just put it back.
Fucking...
I was worried it was going to knock it over. But then it'll draw attention to it, so that'll be good. Do you go down or do you go straight in? I was on one the other day where you had to be in it.
What are we talking about?
Like,
down or straight in? What do you mean?
I am talking about this microphone, Andy.
What are you doing? First off, that's not a tightenable piece right there. That's the part that the microphone selection. For the love of God,
like
Michael,
this.
tell me you're recording right now.
I'm going like this. I was on a podcast recently that was like a big, gigantic microphone like that they had in Naked Gun. If you remember that movie. Anyway, regardless, you had to be like in it, like you had to like push up against it. And the only thing I could think of the whole time was like, who was here just prior?
Why?
Who was here the day before?
I have so many questions. First off, why were they using that microphone?
I think they are in the process of moving and getting better microphones that can take the sound from not just directly like into this gigantic like 1970s big ball that was there, but I just couldn't concentrate because I was just thinking like, who was here before me?
You know what you wash a microphone with? The garbage can.
Nothing. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good, they could probably just replace that thing, but I doubt that they've ever replaced it. It's probably a 10-cent piece.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. God, why would you make it so obtrusive for a guest?
I don't know.
The goal should be to like sit down and actually have a good time and be comfortable.
Yeah, have a good time. You don't have to worry if you're over here or right here or right here. It's like,
I mean, I expect
general vicinity.
Perfection out of you, given that you have a podcast.
Well, I have the same type of microphone. It looks a little different, but you can talk around there and it's okay.
Do you use the Shure SM7B?
That's a good question for the people that actually put the studio together. I do not know. Yes, I do.
You have no fucking clue.
The SM7B. 220, 221, whatever it takes. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of cameras around. It's like the most heavily bugged room in Park City is what I'm
I guess. Thinking. Let's talk about your setup here. You got your double fisting coffee, which I appreciate.
Yes, because I go through them fairly quickly. This right here is a mocha. Someone made me try it, so I was like, okay, I'll try it.
No, you specifically ordered that.
Oh, is that how that happened?
What's it say under the sleeve, though?
In here.
Pull
server.
Pull the sleeve down.
Yeah, no, I see it right here. Andy.
No?
Is my server.
What was the name on top there? Do you want me to read it?
No, I don't.
It says Jack Carr is gay.
Glad they didn't read that out. Oh, jeez. My eye was drawn towards my server.
Yeah, I was
Andy
your server.
S.
But I also, that means I get to
But you didn't do this. You didn't do this one because this is the pour over.
Yeah.
And this is what I was most interested in.
Read
right
the top
here.
line there.
It still says,
Jack Carr is gay.
It says Andy Stumpf is my server, but you weren't really on this.
I took your order.
That's
you
not the server.
Don't want me.
That I did not want. I wanted the
make your
professional
coffee.
on this side, and I thought I was going to have to add my usual honey, cream, half and half, whatever. Get a lot of sugar in this. But with this pour over, she did such a good job. Amazing. Nothing is in here. This is probably the first cup of coffee I've had without honey and or sugar or whatever else in it in years. And
Do you not like
awesome.
the taste of coffee?
I don't know. I like the taste of sugar a lot more, probably.
All right.
But yeah, I add a little honey to it. Usually I try to use local honey, just
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, why not? And then lighten it up a little bit. That just seems to be my thing. So it's my protagonist thing, because in every book about espionage and spies and special operators, it's
Don't try to
coffee's
sell-
black.
We're not here to talk about books.
Coffee
We're here to talk about
black.
SEAL drama.
But
all right.
Is there any SEAL drama? I haven't been paying attention.
Let's ask that in the correct way. Is there ever not
any
SEAL
SEAL
drama?
I feel like that. Well, I don't pay that much attention anymore. I feel like that was
That's
a
the move.
foundation, and I'm just building on a foundation. But there's a foundation before the SEAL teams also.
Yeah.
And so I'm just building off this foundation that's been built over time. So I'm not in that. I don't like that sort of a thing anyway. It just seems kind of, you're wasting bandwidth on drama that's not moving your life forward, not adding value to anyone else's life. It just seems like so I don't pay much attention to that sort of a thing. But
How'd you avoid it in the teams? Because people, what do you think actually, before you answer that, what do you think the biggest misconception that people have about the SEAL teams, or what they?
I like that there are misconceptions.
Yeah, well, there's misconceptions about everything, but from an outside perspective, especially in the modern era of books, TV shows, movies, it's everywhere. What do you think? What do you think is the biggest thing that people actually don't realize about the community?
Well, it's tough, because now I don't know if there's anything they don't really realize, because if you took the time to actually do the research, it's a lot different than doing the research in 1985 or 1990. Doing the research today, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not just the things that have been filtered through editors and publishers, magazines, whatever else, that are going to put something forward that when there's not an abundance of platforms and information and podcasts and everything else. So you got kind of the good stuff back then. You would read, 80% of people are going to fail. This is pretty awesome.
In a summer
look at
class.
these great, look at these amazing pictures, like whatever, Vietnam. Oh my gosh, I wonder what they're doing after this photo. It shows them getting off a boat and headed into the jungle.
Mark
like,
I,
what are they
probably.
doing now? What are they doing next? Like, that's so cool. They're doing an ambush, and you got to think about all these cool things. Now you have everything else also out there, all the dirty laundry. You hear people like us talking about a deployment and talking about, for some places and sometimes it wasn't every night kicking indoors, doing all the things. It was playing video games. Some guys play video games a lot on deployment.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Watching Band of Brothers 74 times.
But you would know that just by, in 1985, looking at the 2 or 3 books or magazine articles that were out there. So I don't know about misconceptions now, because I'm not researching it now. I kind of prefer how it was in the 80s.
I guess I meant at a broad level. I think in traveling around and talking to people, maybe misconception's not a great term. When I talk with people, they seem to think that the community is a bunch of very similar people. That's kind of like a resounding theme that comes up. I would say that's probably the biggest misconception, to maybe use a word that's not very precise, but the diversity of what can only be aptly described as characters.
A lot of characters.
Maybe,
I think that's always been the case.
Maybe that's the biggest misconception, is that they probably look at it, look at this ultimately professional organization.
Or dysfunctional family.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. But that's what I liked about the SEAL teams, and that's something I wouldn't have known going in, because all I'm seeing is, maybe 3 or 4 books and 5 or 6, 7, 8 different magazine articles, a couple maybe Betamax or VHS tapes that show some stuff on Vietnam and some training, but it was limited. You could actually, read all that and see all that, but you don't know what it's like to actually go through training with a group of people and then go to a platoon with a group of people and get to know where they came from, because all you're seeing in those videos and in those magazine articles are guys getting after it.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
So you're not camo face paint on.
It's fantastic, but what was really cool about the SEAL teams when I look back on it is how different everyone was, and how people brought these different backgrounds to this team, and then allowed them to capitalize on those backgrounds, those different backgrounds, to solve a problem, and usually solve a problem very aggressively. So you have people that have never seen the ocean before, and you have people that grew up on the ocean. You have people from the inner city. You have people that went to Yale, and you have
Like
everything
Rhodes
in between,
scholars, like legit, like
as
silver
enlisted.
spoons. Yeah.
You know, and you have all these people coming together from all these different backgrounds, and I thought that was really an asset to it, especially after September 11th, when you really had to solve problems that were going to make a difference. And maybe if you didn't solve them in a way that was appropriate, some guys weren't coming home. So I think bringing all those backgrounds together was really an asset for us. But you didn't know that going in. But now you can kind of see it. The social media and everything else, and you can follow certain people, and you can hear us talking about it, and now you know.
Is it good or bad?
I kind of liked it how it was before. You get to discover it on your own. But I have not, like I said, that's the only thing I have nothing else to compare it to.
But then, so I think the very first time you and I sat down, we were talking about books and the amount of volume, the volume of information that is out there. And you actually made a good point. You know, you and I found out about the SEAL community based off of the literature or whatever was publicly available at the time. Without that, I don't know if we ever would have been exposed to it.
Yeah.
So the positive of there being more touch points, I guess, is that more people could be exposed to it. I think the concern for me on that is whether or not they're getting into it for the right reason.
And you're not putting in, like, you had to put in effort back then. Like, if you heard what a SEAL was and maybe connected it to special operations or something cool, well, then you had to take the next step. And let's say in 1985, even 1995, what are you going to do after that? How much work are you going to put into figuring this out? Are you going to go to the library? Are you going to go to the recruiter? There's no internet yet. How are you going to get more information so that you can find out, oh, okay, special operations, that's the Navy side of the house. Well, what else is there? Oh, there's this Army thing called Army Special Forces. Oh, there's also Army Rangers. Oh, okay, and what is this Marine Recon thing over here? What are those guys doing? And then get more information on all of these different units and figure out the right one for you. What's the one speaking to you? And so you had to put in the work. Today, it kind of comes to you. Like, you just go through your feed. YouTube is feeding you things because you clicked on something. Instagram things popping up.
You can also find out
it's coming to you.
That, like, there's websites that have almost every evolution of every day.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that.
I don't think. Well,
no, it's not a question of like. It's a question of I think it was the fear of the unknown was cool. Back then, you kind of knew this thing called Steel Pier was coming up on one of the nights, and a lot of people were going to quit, but you weren't really sure. I didn't even know where it was going to be. Like, I didn't really know. I just maybe heard.
I thought it was going to be somewhere else.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
It was the most low-tech fucking evolution.
It was just a pier. It was just like a regular. Yeah.
Well, do you think it was even made out of steel?
I think it was, or maybe not steel, some sort of metal, maybe aluminum.
Oh my God.
Maybe aluminum.
I have very fleeting memories
of that
evolution. We should unpack this. All right, so I think we did it on Wednesday.
I couldn't tell you, Tuesday or Wednesday.
It was one of those 2 days. So we're in Hell Week, and for people listening unfamiliar with SEAL training, it's a 6-month block. At the end of it, I always have to make sure I preface it with this: you're not a SEAL, even though many people think that if you make it through BUD/S that you are. So 5th week of training, or when you and I went through, was Hell Week. They hated our class so much we did not get a breakout. We had a very slow roll into Hell Week. Like, hey, guys.
That was a surprise. That was kind of cool too, because you were expecting this thing called breakout, and you were expecting these guys to come in with old school M60s with blanks and flash crashes or whatever else they were going to do. And nothing.
Like,
they hated us so much they didn't want to put in that effort.
And then I remember I was in the far tent on the end. And so, like, other tents had already run out to the surf, and we were just looking at them through the cracks.
I guarantee I was already in there.
Yeah, it didn't last long. I think we got like maybe 1 minute. So, starts on a Sunday. Where did we start? 6-ish?
Yeah.
7-ish?
Somewhere in there. Still light out.
Yeah. Shortly thereafter, Alfred ran for the bell. It's not a big deal. And hypothetically, moving on. And so you get no sleep Sunday for sure. No sleep Monday for sure. No sleep Tuesday.
Yeah, none Tuesday.
You know what? I think it was a Tuesday night evolution.
Yeah.
I think it was, because by Wednesday, and I say this having gone back and been an instructor, the kid gloves are out by Wednesday night.
Yeah, you just want to make sure no one dies.
You're going to fucking kill somebody if you do that. So Steel Pier is on the base. I don't want to get too specific.
And we're not giving anything away because we think anyway that you can go online and find all this stuff.
Yeah,
so
I don't want to, and it's
ruining it. For
it's not like it makes it any easier, but it is an evolution that I had heard about before that week.
Yeah,
because it was like a ball buster for sure, and it was on the bay side of the Naval Amphibious Base there in Coronado, And it literally was one of those piers that just went out, right? And didn't they have us start, like, jump in fully clothed, tread water for a bit?
And take something off then.
But why do they call it steel pier? Were we laying on the pier?
I think it should be more aptly called aluminum pier or aluminium pier if you're across the ocean.
Because I remember getting in, treading water, getting out, remove clothing. Getting in.
Yeah, the whole deal was to stand on the pier and let the wind do its thing.
Destroy
and that's where
you.
you get cold. And you want to get back in the water because
There's no temperature difference being soaking wet in a camouflage uniform and boots and being in... Well, we were basically wearing like spandex shorts towards the end of it.
I think they gave you specifically for Hell Week something for some health reason that we had to...
Yeah.
Because you didn't have them before that.
That's correct.
I don't know.
It was basically like compression shorts.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no difference being in the water. However, mentally, that broke some people.
It did. It was awesome.
Yeah. I remember laying. I remember standing. I remember being hosed, doing all.
Yeah, they hosed us on the pier too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get out, and then they call you back up. You tread water, and then I forget if you had to take something off while you were in the water, or you crawled back on the pier, take off your top or whatever.
I think you took it off after you got out because then the wind would have the effect because it would make no difference in the water.
I think it was just to make it hard. I feel like we took something off in the water just to have sure splashing around and just
That's the Beehive
elbows
Drill.
into people by accident. Like,
That's the Beehive Drill in first phase.
No, maybe I'm conflating things then. Regardless, you get out of there. It's like midnight.
Yeah.
And you're standing on the pier. The wind's coming through. You're shivering. It's cold, and people start quitting. And it's pretty awesome. And then they say 5 more people quit, and we'll stop this evolution.
And I'm not good at math, but we got to that 5, and the evolution continued.
It continues. Back in the water. Get back in. You guys couldn't even quit right.
Yeah.
So the terms of our deal have changed. Yeah.
They fucking
Back
hated
in the
our
water.
class.
They hated us, and back in the water you went. And it was a pretty long evolution because you had to eventually get down to those compression shorts that you're talking about, and then you're treading water, and your class is whittled down to whatever it is. And it's probably the last big evolution in Hell Week where you're losing mass numbers before you get to Wednesday.
As far as
People become a
mass
zombie.
exodus, yeah.
Because then everybody becomes zombies, essentially.
Yeah.
And then you get a little bit of sleep on Wednesday, like maybe you get
About 2 hours.
2 hours, if you go to sleep right away.
I wasn't able to.
Really?
I was like completely fried and tired, but wired.
Yeah.
I did go to sleep, don't get me wrong, but there were people who were in fucking like orbit before I was able to like calm down and slow down a little bit.
And for those listening, it's not like you're going back to a barracks room and you're cutting under the covers. You're just lying
Vietnam
down
cot.
wet on a Vietnam era cot in a general purpose small tent, probably. Anyway,
GP medium.
Is it medium?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So in a tent with maybe 20 guys in there to 15, whatever it is. And your body is just disgusting by this point because you've been awake for so long, constantly moving, and you're just breathing inside this tent with no ventilation on the beach. There's no covers, no pillow, no anything like that. And you're just breathing and maybe like a cold sweat thing, and it's this weird smell because it's musty and that tent is like semi-damp and the ocean is right there.
Yeah.
It's pretty disgusting. But some people go to sleep right away. Some people it takes a couple minutes. Some people maybe takes an hour. Some people maybe don't sleep at all.
Some people don't.
And some people, I think, get pulled for medical just to get checked out to make sure they're not going to die. And by the time they've gotten back, it's time to get back in the ocean. They've missed the whole 2 hours of sleep. And then off they are back in the ocean. So I think that happened to a couple people as well. But
I don't know how much the 2 hours of sleep is helping you, to be honest. I mean, it might from like a electrical impulse level in your body help out a little bit.
Yeah.
But like the situation you described, going back again as an instructor, you don't want to be the first person through the door opening that tent and going in there to wake up the students.
Disgusting.
You want to like air that thing out. It is the fact that we didn't create something 10 times worse than
It could
COVID-19.
be patient zero. Yeah, patient zero for some sort of COVID-type infection could easily have been created in those tents.
Guess who gets mandatory parole in a few years?
Oh, really? Really?
Oh, Ben Seifert.
You can cut somebody up with your girlfriend or
Michael,
two people.
I need you to look up Ben Seifert mandatory parole because he just got denied for parole.
Well,
I'm going to book him for your podcast. It's going to be great.
So
I think it's like 5 years.
Really?
Yes.
So somebody could chop someone up with a Spyderco. Mm-hmm. 2 people, right?
Correct.
2 people up with a Spyderco. You have an accomplice, right? So it's
His wife, yeah.
But cut them into little pieces with a Spyderco, serrated, so you don't have to sharpen as much, I guess, with that serrated blade, and then put them in trash bags and dump them into some sort of in a dumpster, I guess.
Grocery store dumpsters because he used to work at them, so he knew the pace with which they were changed out.
And then you need some cash, so then you go and rob a Hooters for T-shirts.
Fuck yeah.
And then you get picked up and go to prison. But I thought that would kind of put you in there for life. But no.
All right, he's 44.
Cypher was
His
convicted
next
of second-degree murder, first-degree assault, and accessory after the fact. And the killing and dismemberment.
Scroll down there, Michael. I know on here he's got a mandatory parole date.
Do you think he's getting
let's
off because he
see.
was honor man of Bud's class?
No.
It's mandatory
Yeah,
release
2030.
date, except for 2030.
Couple years.
I'm going to book him for you now.
It could change depending on credits earned during his incarceration.
Meaning, I'm going to guess that it would be earlier than 2030. So he's 7 years from mandatory parole.
And he went in 98, 99.
Oh, no. I saw his, I think what was the murders in the early 2000s?
So was it?
I think it's a 2002.
Yeah, because
really? Okay.
I was in Green Team walking by like the locker room area and had like the fucking brakes like at the cork board because there was an article. I was like, I know that guy.
Would this fall under SEAL drama?
No, because he had been, well, technically yes, because he did get his trident, then he got ejected from the SEAL teams.
Okay. Oh my! And what happened to now ex-wife
Memorial Day, they got divorced in
prison?
in prison. I believe they turned on each other during the trial phase.
Yeah.
You know
What happened to her? When's she up for?
I don't know.
Same time frame?
I don't know.
Be interesting to see if it's different. But maybe, I mean, who knows? I don't know anything about the specifics, but maybe one of them was more involved in the cutting up than the other, and the other
Does
just.
it even really matter at that point?
I don't know. Legally, I'm not positive. What your lawyers would argue.
Thrill
Like, did she
cupper.
do it under duress? Like that sort of a thing? You know, you see that on Law
I
and
don't
Order
know.
type of a deal. But,
I'm going to book him for. I'm going to book him for Danger Close.
wonderful. Well, I'll do that. I'll be sure to do that one remote. You know what I mean?
Fuck that, dude. Do it in person.
I don't think so. I don't think I
If
keep
the
some
opportunity-
security measures in place.
If the opportunity presented itself, would you do it?
No.
Why?
I think I'm good. We talked about that SEAL drama a little bit earlier. Yeah, I think I'm good.
I would do it.
Yeah, you,
Like,
should, you
so-
should do it. You're the right person to
Be
do
like,
it.
so Ben,
You're the right person.
just one question. What the fuck, man? Like,
And then just let it go from there.
Yeah.
No, I look forward to listening to that podcast.
Hooters, huh? Just a soft opening. Really slide in there.
Yeah, Hooters, huh?
Yeah.
I wonder, did they actually sell any of that Hooters merchandise?
They got caught in the act of stealing it.
So they never actually. Oh, in the act of stealing it. For some reason, I thought they stole it and then tried to sell it, and that was when they got.
No.
No.
So they got caught in the parking lot.
Oh.
The reason they were arrested for the murders is that in
Yeah.
her purse were the identification cards, also known as driver's licenses. I don't know why I called them identification cards.
They do that.
And the Spyderco
And the
with
Spyderco.
human flesh and hair still in the blade. I'm not a detective, but I think those are clues.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
I call that a clue.
Yeah.
That's rough right there. But how did they trip the silent alarm at the Hooters?
Did
they know they had
silent alarms?
I don't know. Was it a loud alarm, do you think? And they're just like, quick, grab the rest of the stuff. Grab the rest of the Hooters T-shirts.
None of those
Cops
questions
are inbound.
even matter to me. The question is why Hooters?
It's all, it's so fast. That's what makes it so fascinating.
Honor man, class 212, no big deal.
So that's one of those things that kind of humanizes the SEAL teams a little bit. Like that person made it all the way. Not only did he make it through training,
Yeah.
which wouldn't be as surprising. Like you just keep your head down and don't fail out, run fast.
He didn't make it much farther than that.
Yeah.
I think he made it to his first platoon and got ejected shortly after.
So they did the testing for character in the platoon when you're on your probationary period.
Yeah.
And they were like, this guy's a little off.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now they don't have that. Now that
SQT?
the SQT you go through. You can keep your head down.
Yeah.
You know, do your map and compass. Don't get too far off course. Keep passing your runs and swims or whatever you do there. Be safe with the demo, and no tests for character along the way.
I actually don't know anything about the modern SQT pipeline, so I couldn't tell you.
I think it's
I just know it's about 18 months, and you get your trident at the end of it, and then you go to your team.
Yep. So 6 months buds, 6 months I think SQT plus.
Oh, it's way longer than that. I think it's like
so.
18 months.
Let's look it up. We can look it up probably.
Yeah,
The
Michael.
internet will tell us.
Do you think the platoons, when they arrive there, since they have their bird, still have the ability to course correct
I
if
don't
needed?
know because now everybody essentially in those platoons has gone through that same pipeline. So
That's true.
So
Yeah.
no, I don't think it would be any different than a normal platoon doing it. It's yeah.
Huh. Yeah.
So
What'd
now
you
they're
find, Michael? How
all
long
part
is
of the same
SQT?
deal.
I'm not coming up with.
And I think it's changed because you
anything.
used to have a language in there. Some languages were longer than others.
What?
Like they incorporated in there.
We're not Green Berets, motherfucker.
Believe me, I know.
There's no language school in
Sorry.
SQT.
Someone got to put that. Some high-ranking officer got to put that on.
Well, that falls
a fit
into
rep.
your side. You're the fucking
You're
officer.
Says the
So it
pot
says
kettle. Yes.
26 weeks.
Also known as
great.
half of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's around that, regardless. For us.
Yeah.
Like the full thing's like a year plus because you have to wait maybe for class up times.
I feel like there's still that mechanism in your first platoon, though, where you can kind of you spend more time around. You know, you have more leadership. You're in that operational role. I would hope that it still exists.
I hope it is because I thought having that probationary period was so important because that's
You
got
could
to
still
your
have
test.
that at a team.
You could. It wouldn't be as part of.
Oh, that's right, 'cause
you know,
we had it before
was
we got our
written down.
birds.
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
written down. Like that's part of it. Like you knew going in there that now I'm on probation, and these guys are going to evaluate me, and if they
Yeah.
want to go to war with me, I'm gonna have to get the thumbs up from these guys.
Yeah.
And that was kind of cool. It put you in your new guy place. For sure, became a sponge,
Yeah.
and you knew you're still being evaluated. Yeah, you're always being evaluated for whether you're in for 10 years or 20 or 30, whatever. You're always being evaluated. But that was written in there as this is your 6-month probationary period, kind of like
I
left
forgot
seat,
that was
right
before
seat
we got our
drive.
tridents. For some reason, I thought it was basically a year, even if you had gotten your trident. It was a long time ago.
And then they gave you, and then those guys award your trident, which was awesome because now your peers are giving it to you, not some curriculum thing where you just ran fast. And I mean, it's still great, but it's really cool to get it from.
Did they just hand you
peers.
yours?
They handed it to me over and over again into
Yeah,
my chest,
same
which was
here.
awesome.
I was gonna say.
which was awesome. But the thing about that was the guys that I thought were going to hit the hardest didn't, and the guys that I thought, man, this guy can't hit hard, really hurt.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. That stands out to me to this day. But that was cool. It put you up against the side of a Connex box.
Yep.
So there's not like you can't just like fall backwards. You're up against the side of the Connex box. You're taking all that impact, which is awesome. I thought that was a good way to do
Wouldn't that
it.
be considered abuse?
Now it is. Yeah, now it is. You got a
What do
commanding
you think
officer
about
walking
that?
by. I'm not a fan of.
If you were the commanding officer of SEAL Team fill in the blank,
I'm glad we got out.
SEAL Team Jack Carr,
I'm
right?
glad we got out when we did.
And you see somebody pounding a trident into somebody's chest, and you're walking by as a skipper. What do you do?
Well, personally, I'm going to maybe go over there and give it a little tap myself. But, today I think you would be, even if you wanted to do that, you could get, I don't know, relieved of command probably.
Nothing good would probably happen if you
Yeah.
did that.
But it's awesome.
It is awesome.
You're part of the brotherhood.
But if you remove that, what does that mean for the community?
Now you're just scared. Now that commanding officer walking by, probably scared to go over and do anything other than, hey, cut that out, gentlemen, chief, in my office type of a thing. See the master chief. They take the fun out of everything. So much fun has been taken out of so many different
You can look
aspects
at
of
it
life.
as fun. Like, that was fun for the people doing the punching.
Looking back, it was great.
Looking back at it, yes, but
And
there's
it's like
also
10 minutes long, something like that.
It is like
15.
10 minutes long.
And then it's handshakes,
It is-
and it's hugs, and it's kegs, and it's an awesome time out that night with your boys that you went through training with, and your new guys in the platoon together.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's a physical representation of you being welcomed into the community officially that I guarantee you doesn't show up anywhere in doctrine, but is, I think, critical inside of that community.
Yeah.
And if they take the ability to do that away, which I suspect they may have,
Oh.
or they're doing it incredibly privately, which also is a problem because I don't think you should have to do something like that privately. I think that speaks towards the efficacy of the community and the trajectory that it's on. I mean, you can look at the
And I don't
modern
think
day-
it's just the community. I think it's
I was just
in
going to
general.
say,
It's just the
do you
world
th-
in general.
what are your thoughts on the military being invaded by the what some people call woke ideology and the lowering of body fat standards? They're providing waivers for felons, all sorts of good things.
I try to remain hopeful, especially
You
publicly.
optimist, you.
I try.
Especially publicly.
It takes a lot. It's taking a lot more effort these days than it has in the past.
Yeah.
So when my wife and I sit down and have a glass of wine at the end of the night, finally put our feet up, whatever, it's tough to remain positive. But if something is not making you a more effective fighting force, and of course they argue that it does, that these things do. Okay.
I've never had anybody connect the dots for me on that, though.
They don't
I've
have to.
heard
They
the
just
sa-
say that it does.
But I get that. They say
Yeah.
that it does, but
You're like, wait a
also
sec.
how?
Wait, here we are. Afghanistan, August 2021. Yeah, good job. 20 years to prepare. Our best and brightest had 20 years to prepare for that. I don't know if those are the same people that are making these sorts of decisions, and they are, because none of one was relieved. No one went in front of Congress and took accountability. No one resigned in protest, either before, during, or after that event. They just continued on the path, sending the message to those who were coming behind them that if you want to continue on this path and you want your star and you want another one and a third and a fourth, and then you want to sit on this board where you have to show up once or twice a year to make your 250 or 500 grand to sit in this meeting and not say anything, so we can get these contracts because your name's on this. Well, then shut up and get in line, and no accountability. Different than World War II. Very different.
Who do you think should be held accountable for the withdrawal in Afghanistan?
All the senior level leaders across the board. And you can go back to the Civil War, and you can go back to Abraham Lincoln. He went through a lot of generals before he found Grant, and that's civilian control of the military, which is of vital importance, obviously, in our society. But it didn't start with Grant. Like, he went through a lot of generals. Now we get to World War II, George Marshall, and he was mostly known for the Marshall Plan following World War II, rebuilding Europe. That's what people know him for if you go through your high school history class and that sort of a thing. But what he really did was put the right people in the right places in the lead up and all through World War II to get to all those names that we know today as the admirals and generals who led us through World War II to the end. Well, they didn't start in those positions. Somebody else did who didn't measure up, and Marshall would give them maybe a second chance, usually not a third. No, you can't
on to the
do this. Next guy up, and we're going to promote competence. And you're moving up. Oh, you didn't cut it either? Guess next. And they didn't keep these people. And something changed in Vietnam, in particular, is when you see this big change take place.
Why do you think that is?
Because this now became an industry. And
you're talking about the military-industrial complex?
Yeah, that's the term that most people apply to it from Eisenhower's speech. But people should listen to the whole speech. It's important to listen to that whole speech. But just think of it as an industry in general, an ecosystem in general.
Most people use it with like a negative connotation. I think it should it is what it is.
But it's growing. That's the thing.
There is an industry that exists solely because of the military and the executional warfare.
Yep, and there are a lot of people that are taking a lot of percentages, and it provides a lot of livelihood and a lot of wealth, which means power. And that's not made up. That's not something from the pages of my novels. I mean, it is, but it's not a conspiracy theory from the pages of the novels. So something in around the Vietnam time frame changed when you have these massive contracts mid-Cold War, tons of money. The country is prosperous, and that with that money grows this bureaucracy, grows the people involved, grows the companies involved, and now you need these people that are getting out of the military regardless, because last week they were in charge of signing this contract for Bell helicopters, and next week they're on the board, type of a thing, and that has continued since.
That's probably random, though. That's not structured. That's just super random and happens all the time.
You just happen to be
super randomly happens all the time.
It's super has been happening since the mid 60s. Yeah, exactly. Mid 50s. I mean, that's when.
So how do we course correct from that?
That is the tough part right there, because
this
thing
I agree
is so big. These bureaucracies are so gigantic.
Yeah.
And now we have other elements in there as well. Now you have a media that is a lot different than it was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And
do you mean by that they don't actually report the news? I mean, they tell you what they think you should think based off of what side of the aisle you're on?
Yeah, legacy media, obviously.
It's editorialized. It's not even the news anymore. It's amazing to me to flip back and forth. I'll use two examples of many, CNN and Fox News. Watch them report on the same thing. Holy fucking shit. It can seem at times like you're not even talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Afghanistan, actually the withdrawal is a perfect example of this. People reach out to me all the time, like, oh, how should vets feel about their time in Afghanistan? It's actually, in my opinion, you have to detach what you've done in your military career with the exit of Afghanistan, because what you and I did in that country had absolutely fucking nothing to do with what happened in August of 2021, right? Like, neither of us were there. We did the job to the best of our ability. I was not ever consulted a single time, nor should I have been, on how we should get out of that country, right?
Well, maybe you should have been.
Well, maybe, but then take it with a grain of salt. I probably would have been an E6.
All right, maybe not you. Someone else should have been.
Yeah. I'd have been like, consulted. Oh, yeah, can I get a flamethrower and a shovel? We'll get the fuck out of here. Like, take it with a grain of salt. But that's a really tough one because of That's the last thing they saw. It's a really bad taste in their mouth. And, you know, there's Senate hearings going on about Afghanistan, and it's not like they're not even fucking trying to figure out what happened. They're just yelling back and forth at each other, and you know what side's going to say what based off of literally what side of the aisle that they stand on. It's like we're literally just jerking each other off on national TV for some investigation into Afghanistan and say, oh, it's Biden's fault. Oh, it's Trump's fault. It's like, holy shit.
Well, I mean, it's so hard to watch. It's so
I can't
difficult
watch
to
it. I can't watch it.
But you have a Pentagon spokesperson up there, whoever it was up there, saying this is a major success. We left Afghanistan, and then this is why when memes and things like that are so good, and they juxtapose it.
Yeah, the TV
with people
screen
falling
is come
from planes.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
And babies getting thrown over walls into concertina wire, cut up, bleeding out, and unnecessarily so because you gave up the high ground. If people are watching, this is high ground. This is not.
Well, technically,
and
the can would be
so,
high ground. You just or the top of the book.
From high ground, you went down here and you put these E1s, E2s, E3s, E4s, E5s in this tactically disadvantageous position right here at this gate where anybody can walk through with an S-Vest, drive in with a VB.
Don't forget the restrictive ROEs as well. Not only put them into a confined position, but gave them the authority to do almost fuck all.
And that's something that happens time and time again. So you don't need, like, people want to talk to, go on TV and talk about ask those same types of questions. You don't have to talk to me about it. You can take anyone who has zero touch points with the military, has never read a book on strategy or tactics or geopolitics, and knows no one in the military, has never seen a military movie, and say, hey, what would you do in this situation here? Here's Bagram. Here's the airport at Kabul. We're leaving. Where should we leave from? And have that person say, oh, okay, why this one here? It's kind of people can just walk right up to it, and okay, this
there's
one here,
no buffer, there's no dead space.
Yeah, we control this area all the way out to here. You have all this standoff distance. We have totally controlled it. It's one of the most strategic airfields in the country, or that part of the world even. Maybe we should leave from this place. This seems a little bit safer to me.
Yeah.
And yet, none of our senior military leaders who have been through, who we've paid, by the way, for 30 years or so, to go to West Point or Annapolis or wherever they went, to go to then the graduate schools, some of them to get a PhD in government and policy. And this is the best they could come up with.
So I had Chad Robichaud on. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had him on your podcast?
Yeah, he's great.
He's fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You talk about the concertina wire. There's videos of people handing babies up, and he made a point of, and I'm glad that he did, of kind of going into detail of what was not shown. And that's just literally, he said it was at least a half a dozen, if not a dozen babies that were cut to pieces and bled to death on that concertina wire because it was 6-7 rows deep. And then not only the decision, right, Bagram versus Kabul, which from every metric of like what would be defensible, it's Bagram all day long. Let's outsource the external security to the fucking Taliban
to our enemy,
and have the Taliban checking people's passports. What the fuck? Like, I am not a smart person, but that's fucking stupid.
You don't need to be to look at this sort of a situation and apply some common sense to it. I mean, Karl von Clausewitz, who wrote On War, said the most important attribute of a battlefield leader is common sense. George Marshall said something similar. That's why you can take anyone with a little bit of common sense and just paint this picture and ask them, where should we leave from? What makes the most sense to you here? It's absolutely ridiculous. And that no one took that star off their collar and dropped it on the table and said, I am leaving. This is the most atrocious miscarriage of responsibility that I've ever seen. And I'm out, and get out and then talk to the American public about it. Because now you've taken that thing off your collar. Instead, you just went along with it.
Well, I don't know any of those people at that pay grade, but I would imagine the conversation they were having in their head is, do I do that? But what about my next job? And if you made your decision based off of what your next is going to be and taking care of yourself while sacrificing everybody else that was underneath you, then you're a fucking disgrace to the uniform.
It's disgusting. And that's the kind of person that stays in for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, when they get to the very top, though, it really helps.
They can really make a difference. Yeah, good job, guys.
For people like them,
All
they can.
of you. Yeah, for them, their families, their bank accounts. It's absolutely disgusting. But
Yeah.
they give me a lot to work with in the pages of the novels because politicians and senior military leaders.
I feel like you have to sit here and think of things not to write about.
Exactly. It's exactly how it is. And it's crazy. There's so much going on. Like, imagine if in 2010, let's say, a book came out that talked about this thing called COVID. It was gonna come out, and we weren't really sure where it came from, but it originated close to a lab that studies it in China. At the same time, we're gonna have a real estate mogul who has a hit TV show, is going to run for president and really polarize the country. We're also going to have some tiny spy balloons flying over, every now and again, continue to divide us. We're going to have some race riots in here. We're going to have some civil unrest. No one would have believed all these things would have happened in such a short period of time. If you wrote it back in 2005, 2006, 2010 timeframe, it would have been like, oh, this is science. You got to have some level of believability in these books. Tossed.
Now they'd be like, holy
now you have
shit,
to figure out like, Jesus,
Jack Carr is Nostradamus.
Well, some things. I mean, like the series that we're going to work on after this spin-off thing is for True Believer, my second novel, and in that I have the hero. He is Russia wants to invade Ukraine. Okay, so now Russia's actually done that. So now we have to really figure out how we're going to work that into the storyline because now it's actually happened. But some things it doesn't, you don't have to be Nostradamus to figure some of this stuff out. Some things are just, hey, things are all pointing in this direction. This is probably
We're just
gonna
understanding
happen.
human behavior.
But point being, politicians and senior military leaders give me a lot to work with.
What's the difference between a politician and a senior military leader?
I describe them as politicians in uniform.
I was going to say, like, if you're at the 4-star level, and again, it's era I've never been a part of, and I'm sure there
are exceptions for those listening. There are exceptions.
Well, there's a bell curve, right? There's a bell curve like anything, but what's the fucking difference? You know what I mean? Because again, some of the people who I have seen, and this is totally anecdotally with my own eyes and ears, that are the most unwilling to accept responsibility and accountability of any kind, politicians.
Yeah. Oh, it's
so
remarkable. It's remarkable.
It is spectacular to a degree. Like,
and
if
now you
want
can
to
just say the same lie over and over and over again,
Yeah.
and half the country believes you.
And if the military leaders who are unwilling and unable to accept that same level of accountability and responsibility, what's the fucking difference, right? Oh, we're going to give you a different title on a piece of paper. No, by behavior, you guys are exactly the same thing.
And I can't even imagine what it's like for the new guy coming in right now as an E1, E2, E3, E4, E5.
What I've heard is it's not great.
Yeah.
And the few touch points that I do have, there's a lot of push for social agenda, even inside of the community that we came from.
Wow.
And deviation of some standards, which to me is a recipe for absolute disaster in the future.
Yeah, so book 4, Devil's Hand, what I did was I looked at the United States through the lens of the enemy. So through Iran, China, North Korea, super-empowered individuals, terrorist organizations. Like, what would I have learned by watching the United States at war for, at that point, I wrote that, let's say 18 years at war. And as I'm writing that thing, that's when COVID hits. That's when our summer of civil unrest hits. That's when a very contentious political season kicks off, even more contentious than we've had in the past. And so my takeaway was, if I was the enemy, I might not do much.
I would invest in fast food chains and put more of them in the U.S. and we'll kill ourselves. Because we're lazy, slovenly fucking heathens.
And that might be one of the least of our problems. It's we're destroying ourselves from the inside. And so if I'm the enemy, maybe a nudge here, a nudge there, but that's about all you need to do. We're doing a pretty good job of killing ourselves.
I actually don't know if you look at whatever you would define the enemy of the U.S. as, I think you nailed it. I don't actually think we need any external influence. We're doing a really good job of actually being unable to determine what the hell we even stand for as a country anymore anyway.
Exactly. And where are you supposed to debate great issues of our time? On social media?
Usually the
Instagram
Instagram comments
That's
are
a good
great.
place to go, or YouTube comments, a good place to go to change somebody's mind, I found, yes.
You never get into the comments.
No, I don't go into the comments.
Sometimes I get into your comments and fuck with people.
Thank you. I see every now and again you get into yours. Like if you're first in, like the top couple on
It depends
yours,
on if I catch it. If I catch a zinger, sometimes I'll throw back a zinger.
Yeah, I like that you do that. But for me, I'm like, oh, then they're going to come back with something. And then I'm like, then it looks like I quit because I got something else to do. So I don't even do it.
It's okay to quit.
I don't even do it. But you're going to have to at some point, back and forth. What is that doing? That's taking bandwidth from me, and it's keeping me from spending time with my family and writing my book and writing the next scripts and creating.
Jack, it's not.
And
You're confusing.
because I got a good zinger.
You're confusing
but I'll use it
the
as fuel.
Instagram comment section with well thought out, articulated ideas.
I'll take those feelings and emotions and apply them into a novel, and I'll disembowel someone and have them wrap their guts around a tree and slowly get eaten alive by mosquitoes and raccoons and alligators. And that makes me feel better.
Yeah, but it
Very
doesn't. It
therapeutic.
doesn't burn them as deeply as a sick IG comment.
But it helps more productive on my front. So I can.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Chinese spy balloons. What do you think?
Wow. I mean,
First off,
These
they have,
balloons have
they
been
have
around for a
satellite.
while, right?
Well, they have satellite technology. So why would they send a balloon over if they have satellite technology?
it's all so weird. It's all so bizarre, and it's not just one that like veered off course. What was it,
Yeah.
3? But one was like from
It's
a
3 that
hobbyist.
we know about.
But wasn't it like a hobbyist, like from Colorado or something, that was putting up a balloon?
No,
and
that was God damn it.
something.
They spent. It was over $1 million on the missile to
Yeah.
shoot down a $13
Yeah.
like hydrogen mesh. It was over the Great Lakes.
Was it over really? I mean,
It was like an AIM-9 missile shot at like a $12 Home Depot
it's
project.
amazing. Amazing. So did 2 of them, I've been a little busy.
One of them flew over here.
Yeah, one of them came by close.
Yep. They were checking out
and that was
the-
the real one, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't the hobbyist thing from.
It was that was the balloon that China said was a scientific research one that flew over. It was my understanding is it was just here to check out the coffee shop to just like get schematic design of it because it's so bitchin'.
That's what I heard through my channels. That's what I didn't want.
That's what I
didn't wanna say
posted
anything.
on the internet.
I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to give up my sources. But
Yeah.
that's probably what I was doing.
I
But
think
that doesn't
Glover-
explain the other 2 though.
But then Glover's like, they're doing that to test to see if they could hang a nuclear bomb from it and explode it in the altitude. I'm like, dude, they also have missile technology as well. Stop freaking everybody out, Mike.
It's so bizarre. Did 2 of them end up being Chinese spy balloons? People can tell us in the comments that we'll spend a lot of time in.
I don't know.
Yeah, because there were 3, right? I don't know either.
I feel
was
like
busy.
there was one shot in Alaska,
Okay, so that's the one I'm thinking of. So
one
that's-
shot
okay.
over the Great Lakes, and
Which
by
was
that
the
I'm-
hobby.
Yeah,
Yes,
hobbyist,
thing.
and then I believe they
One that went all the way across
Across
off
to
the
the
East
East Coast,
Coast. Yeah, off South Carolina or something.
That's right, because they
Down.
recovered some of it in the water.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, imagine if any of this stuff had happened in 1988. Like, if there's a Chinese balloon coming over in 1988, or the UFO stuff.
Yeah.
No one really cares. Like, the UFO stuff, imagine that happens in 1975, 80, 85, 90. People would be like, wait, there are unidentified flying objects, and the government is now telling us that these things exist
I think
in
they
front of
released
Congress?
one today.
I
think
saw
they
that's why
released
it's
footage
at the top of my head. I
Yeah.
checked news when I got off the plane, and imagine that happening another time. Now it's like, what's next? I'm like, zing. What else is here? Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah.
What do you think
crazy.
the UFOs are?
I mean,
Are they aliens?
I don't know. That's what's so crazy. Like, they're not really telling us. They're calling them something else too, like unidentified something.
Aerial phenomena.
Is that what it is?
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
they've changed some names around, probably because some senior level military leaders like, I can put this in my eval.
So let's assume, though. Let's say these are.
Let's say they're aliens?
Let's say they're aliens. That would mean they've come from somewhere that we're not, and are definitely at a level beyond where we are, from a sophistication, perhaps intelligence, whatever it may be. If you are observing humanity from a distance, I would be getting the fuck off this planet.
Might
as
want to
fast
pass this one by. Let's go to the next one.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
what exactly would they be doing here?
I don't know.
You know?
I don't know. I just find it just so just astounding that these things are now headline news, front page news, and people just scroll on to the next thing, like me included. I'm like, UFOs, of course, UFOs after the last few years. What else?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, I just feel bad for the kiddos today. One, dealing with that phone.
It's rough.
Friggin' awful.
The anxiety rectangle is what I call it.
Yeah. Why do you call it the rectangle? Oh,
Well,
I was
don't know
thinking.
if
I was
you know
thinking
much
of,
about geometry, but this is a rectangle.
I was thinking it was deeper than that. I was thinking it was going to become like some
You
sort
know
of
me better than that?
like a
I
cycle
just-
of violence. I thought you were going to talk about some sort of a.
You've known me long enough to know that comment
It's
was
just the shape.
completely.
It's just the shape. Yeah, nothing to see here. But it's so tough. I mean, gosh, these kids are so tough. Those attention spans going down to 15-second increments, and then growing up in a time when we try, like I said earlier, be positive, and not let the kids overhear us talking about how much better the 80s were. which they were.
Yeah.
But today it's just rough. I feel like the kids growing up today, and makes you sound like an old person when you say that, but they're not. It's just such a rough time to be a kid, I think. I mean, it's not the depression, right? It's not. So it's like there's that side of it too. Like
It's a different
We have great
challenge.
health care. Okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. But it's just a tough time to be a kid, I think, with all these inputs that are so negative. So negative. And the TikTok thing, what about that? What
It's
about
not even
China
necessarily all-
sending all their kids all this wholesome stuff
Yeah.
through TikTok? All these like amazing mathematicians and music and all these amazing things.
It's basically
and
STEM.
ours,
Yeah, they're valuing and
The
highlighting
opposite.
STEM type stuff. And for U.S. culture, they're like, oh, I have an idea.
Yeah.
Let's just have people shaking. It's tits and ass is basically what it is. And we'll have a competition in that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, Americans can't get enough of that,
Mm-hmm.
especially their youth. So we'll just generationally destroy them.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
Come on, we got to talk about something positive. Jeez, it's
Well,
so crazy. There's not.
China's population is going to fall off a cliff here shortly.
I've talked to Peter
Peter
Zahn
Zahn,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Amazing guy. He influenced that second book, True Believer. That's how I got the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He predicted it to the exact year, by the way. Back in 2014 is when his book came out. I read it in 2016.
I think
and,
he's right about the population in China too.
Well, yeah, they had the one-child policy for how long?
Dude,
Eventually,
not only
that's
one
gonna-
child policy, they valued having a male child over a female child.
Yep.
And now, again, I'm not an expert as to who can get pregnant. I have my own thoughts on this.
My understanding
Not
is that's
everybody
shifted a bit.
not everybody agrees with my thoughts on this, but if you only select males, that's also not going to help with population.
How dare you?
I didn't. No, that was fair. I said if you only select males.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry. I'm sorry.
Russia's in the same.
I'll say it. I don't think men
Russia's
can
in
get
a-
pregnant.
Russia's-
I'm sorry.
Russia's in a very similar position, not because of a one-child policy, but I've got a host of other issues, drugs and disease and a bunch of other things, healthcare, and that's one of the primary reasons they need Ukraine is for ethnic Russians in Ukraine. Without that, their population they're heading south at a very fast rate, and ethnic Russians will not be around for much longer unless you get Ukraine and you get those ethnic Russians that are there.
What was Peter's estimate on China? Was it 2 decades? And
I
it
forget, I have
just
to go back and
augurs.
listen. He talked to me about it on the
Yeah.
podcast, and it's in his latest book as well. But it's something along those lines.
Yeah, it's to maintain the homeostasis and not even grow as a population. I think it's 2.1 children per female, and I think China was at like 0.09.
It's amazing how his mind looks at all those things.
Well,
and can
as the U.S.,
extrapolate it.
the number of countries that were above his threshold was actually quite low. I think it was under a dozen. It might have been under a half a dozen. The U.S. was a part of that, which is why, from a population perspective, he was saying we're not facing like an existential crisis. But many other countries in the world are like right at the top of the bell curve, getting ready to go on a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, it's remarkable how many are right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, once again, these kiddos coming into this world
Yep.
that's going to have to deal with all these changes in the next few years. Plus, we got the AI going on.
Yeah. We're totally fucked on that
Which
one.
is scary as well. I'm thinking about using it
Just to
as like
write
a
your
research
books?
assistant.
Just to write your books?
No, never going to do that. Somebody did send me one, said, hey, write the next chapter in the next Jack Carr novel. And it came back, and it was off, but it was like in 10 years, it'll probably be pretty dang good. But as a research assistant, I was thinking, but then I thought.
What does that do to authors? When it gets to that level.
Yeah, you can say like, hey, write a script and do it like this, this. Here are the characters. One is this, one is this, one is this. Here's their background. Write in a script that's X number of words or X number of pages or whatever. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, I'm not going to go to. I think I'm past that stage. But for people that are coming in who are used to being on that rectangle,
I mean, think about. I
it'd be competition. I guess. I don't know.
I don't mean you. I guess I mean people who I would describe as artists.
Yeah.
I just read an article last week about the person turned down the award, but an AI generated photo
I saw that
that
too.
was indistinguishable from other photos. And the person had some morals and was like, hey, this is an AI photo, but photographers I put into the artist realm as well. I don't know how you could get AI necessarily to paint with a brush, but I guess in the digital era,
I'm sure.
when it's represented in ones and zeros. Well, I mean, if anybody now can go into that and type in that and it produces something at the level that what you're doing, like, doesn't that destroy the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean,
like how the hell
maybe.
do you
think we don't know. I mean,
compete
you'll have
with-
people that come out and say, "I'm never going to use this," which I'll say that
it's going to get so
not going
good
to write
you
a
won't
book.
be able to know if they're not.
I know that's kind of crazy, but I think there'll always be a little tell I don't know. I mean, the feelings and emotions, but maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I'm just being a little idealistic and positive about it. But I think there's always going to be a little tell. If you write a 120, in this case, 138,000 word book, like there'll be something in there that's not quite right. I think not positive, but I think. But so what I'm thinking about using it for is as a research assistant. And say,
Like, what would you ask it?
I'd say, hey, were there any, let's say, the easternmost battle of World War II? Instead of typing that in, I just ask my assistant, hey, give me a paper on that. How many snipers were involved? Were there sniper teams involved? What kind of weapons did they use? What kind of optics were in there? And were there any standout snipers that were maybe awarded?
So super
after the war?
deep dive.
Yeah, give me a one-page paper on that. And then,
you know who we need to ask?
I don't know.
Michael. Michael, you're like 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to
Give
end
or
up?
take.
How long until we work for robots? And also, what would you use AI for as somebody who's like in their early 20s?
How long until we work for robots?
Yeah. I mean, you work at UPS, so you're already
10,
working for a robot? So.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
10, 15 years, give or take.
Okay. What would you use AI for? Were you using it at all when you were in school?
No, it wasn't out the way it is now when I was in school, because now they have ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And you can
You
just
can
write an
literally
essay.
say, write me an essay about this, and people are crushing
that's what somebody
college.
put in there. They put in, hey,
Yeah.
write the next chapter in Jack Carr's new book. And
Apparently they have checks on that now where
But like how?
so I don't know how.
another AI, a competitor can check and then make
Competitive
it a battle.
AI. But I have used I forgot which specific bot it is, but it's an art generator one. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
generates like really, really good art. Like it's amazing actually.
I was actually playing around with that not too long ago.
With ChatGPT?
With the art generator. I was playing around
Yeah,
with
it's like,
astronauts riding motorcycles on the moon.
Why wouldn't you?
and it gives
was pretty
you
dope.
a really good picture.
Seems
of
like a
that.
good use of time.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, so I mean, people will be able to write an entire book. You just give it the parameters, and off it goes. But that chapter that
takes
someone
that-
told that
like-
it to write wasn't quite there. It wasn't quite right. But
Yeah,
it wasn't horrible.
Dude, we're only on Chat GPT
I know.
4. Michael, can you look up how long Chat GPT has been around? Because if it went from iteration 1 to 4 in just a few years, it's going to go from 4 to 10 in less time and 10 to 20 in less time.
I didn't even hear about it till I think maybe February. Someone told me, it was like, hey, and that's when they sent me this thing about my next book.
So launched as a prototype November 30th, 2022 by OpenAI.
Bro, that's fourth iteration in
Yeah,
less than a year.
yeah, no, it's crazy.
You're out of work probably Friday.
It's crazy.
That's
That's why I got to work so hard right now. That's why I'm like
But
going
dude, that's
24/7.
like, what you do is incredibly artistic. What? Fuck. There's so many people who are like that. And if you just can enter into this and everybody now achieves this level that, quite frankly, like I don't have it. Most people don't have it. Like, what does that mean for you?
I think you could, if you don't need to put in the work, if all you need to do is come up with your two-paragraph executive summary and say, write this book, okay, now there's more to it than just the product. You still have to do all the other things that you would have to do in any business to let people know that thing exists anyway. And so now you have to go out there and have your own podcast, go on podcasts, have a social media presence, do interviews. What are you
All of
supposed
what
to
you've
say?
described
What are you supposed to say about this
Can
book?
also be done by AI.
I don't know.
Have you seen the fake
out there.
podcast with
No.
who was it? It was Joe Rogan and who was it?
Oh, I heard that somebody
Well,
did
there's
that.
a
And it was
ton of
like
them.
pretty good.
It
right?
was pretty good. You can 100% tell that it's
Yeah.
not real.
But
But
in
again,
5 years, you won't be.
that's what I'm saying. Like there'll be fucking AI social media. There'll be AI. Somebody's going to be on there like, okay, now do a podcast.
I was depressed when I
series.
walked in here this morning. Now I'm even more depressed right now. Now I'm going to hang it up. This is friggin'
No,
ridiculous.
it worries me because I think what you do is super valuable. I don't think everybody should have the ability to be as creative as you are.
Appreciate that. It's, you have the ability, but it's putting in that work. Like that takes a long time. That's the thick book right there.
Now, once I get GPT TTP 5, whatever the fuck it's called,
Yeah. It'll be interesting. It'd be interesting to compare.
my book's going to be called Only the Alive.
It's catchy.
Whatever book that you
catchy.
make, I'm going to change one
The
word in the
opposite.
title.
Yeah, no,
My name will be Carr Jack.
But even the like the cover, like saying, make me the cover, Jack Carr's next book, make Jack Carr larger, make the title a tiny bit smaller, put #1 New York Times bestselling author of In the Blood, put a boat on there, put a backdrop from Cyprus, and put a tomahawk on there from Daniel Winkler, the R&D hawk with the front spike. Go and see what they come up with.
It would come up with almost exactly that in about 4 seconds.
Because right now, that's people that are doing this. They're all putting it together. They're creating it. They're putting the elements together. But yeah, I worry more about that person's job in the future than I do.
They're all tied,
so
man.
much about.
They're all
mine.
tied. Because what's happening right now is that like some of those ancillary duties that you're talking about are actually already relying upon AI.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is it. I don't know.
I'm sure there's but again, so if those other
Actually, it's not. I know.
If those downstream fields though start reaching into that, it's going to work its way upstream.
I don't know. It's tough. I'm just going to keep doing this because I love it. But I mean,
yeah. What the hell have you been up to? We haven't even talked about.
Tough. I mean, it'd be tough to
talk me through your last year. That's the last time we sat down. Right?
It's been a year. Yes, since you got your latest belt.
No, so that's. I don't know if Michael even knew this. So Michael randomly he shows up to do a podcast.
Not quite randomly showing up. I mean,
I didn't know about the Ironman. He shows up. He was there at my Blue Belt Ironman.
Oh.
Showed up a year later for the Purple Belt Ironman. Neither of which were scheduled, and we picked the dates before it showed up.
I'm just keeping track.
So he came up last time. He's like, "Do you actually want me to come up, or is there just another belt ceremony?" Which there was not.
I kind of figured there would be this time, but no, it takes maybe next year. This time we'll see.
Who knows? I don't care. The belts are dumb.
Yeah,
it doesn't change the outcome at all.
No, he's putting in the work. Same thing, putting the work on the mat. You're putting in the work as I'm writing these things. But yeah, it's been a busy year.
So I think when we sat down last time,
around this time, right?
It was around this time, but you hadn't done. I'm sure you had been in talks with Amazon, but you hadn't had the show in the can. It wasn't in the. I don't even think it was in the can yet.
Yep, it was done, but it hasn't been out.
Okay,
so it came out on July 1st.
All right, so you have that. You obviously have this book.
No.
There's the spin-off stuff that they're going to do on the. Just fill me out. Like, what's the palette look like for Jack Carr?
It has been a busy year, and it gets busy. It's been getting busier and busier. We talked about that, about changing the phone, but the things that I wanted to do with my life were to be a Navy SEAL, serve my country in uniform, and at the time, you just thought you were going to go to war and do secret missions, but we realized when we first walked across
we did the war
deck,
part, not the secret mission part.
Right. Until after September 11th, and then we got to do what we thought we were going to come in.
Maybe that's the biggest misconception. I have people say to me like, "Hey, is there anything you can tell me about that wasn't classified?"
I know you can't say anything, but
my response is, "Don't worry, I never did a single thing in my career that was classified." So
yes, you did. Yes,
not
you
really.
Did.
I got read into a few programs, but as far as the stuff that we did,
you're kicking it. You're doing.
Yeah,
we were doing what any big town, big city SWAT team is going to do tonight. They're going to go out and they're going to get a warrant, and they're going to go do a no knock or a knock, and they're going to execute that warrant. They're going to go in and grab somebody who's violated parole or whatever they're doing, and drag them back to jail. So that's essentially what we did, but we did it in places like Baghdad and wherever else with an AC-130 above and a Reaper above, and that.
Generally, wasn't looking to arrest anybody.
So. Show me your hands.
Yes. Yeah. An hour later, your choice.
Yeah. So that's so. Point being, that's what we thought we were going to do when we walked across that quarterdeck at Team 5. We didn't get to kicking any doors till after September 11th. That's a better way to put it.
Nor did anybody really.
Yeah. Very few and far between. So, having done that and then written these novels, that was the other thing I wanted to do, is write thrillers just like the kind I was reading growing up. That's written by guys like David Morrell and Nelson DeMille and A.J. Quinnell and J.C. Pollock and Mark Golden and Tom Clancy. All these guys who had protagonists, main characters with backgrounds that I wanted in real life. So they were either Navy SEALs in Vietnam, or they were Marine snipers in Vietnam. They were CIA paramilitary in Vietnam, Army SF Vietnam. That was kind of the background of characters in the 80s. So I knew I wanted to write these kind of books after I got out of the military. I wanted to be a #1 New York Times bestseller, and I wanted to have something that I wrote turned into a film or a TV show. So that happened, and now it's just about doing it better going forward.
We couldn't really talk about last time the Amazon project because it was a little...
Yep.
It's not that it was a secret, but you weren't talking too much about it. How was that process?
Oh, amazing. I got very fortunate with the team that got put together around this project, and that's all because of Chris Pratt and Antoine Fuqua, the two people that I wanted to be involved with this project, ended up being the leads in this. And
do they set the team, or do other people have some voice into who comes into that?
Yeah, they're very influential, especially Chris owns it. So Chris optioned it. And then Antoine and him have a. So what happened was, it once again goes back to the SEAL teams, and it goes back to my friend Jared Shaw. Jared, if you're listening, you probably aren't because you're out working. But if you are listening, thank you, because Jared is the one who gave it to Chris. And
Is he still working for Chris?
No, so he is an executive producer on this next one that we're doing. He's a writer.
The spinoff.
The spinoff, yep, that we're doing, and then that'll move into True Believer, which is the second novel. So, so Jared and I are both working on that together, and he's an amazing guy. But the way this all
He doesn't work
happened-
for Chris anymore, though?
I mean, they work together.
Okay.
Yeah, work
Because
together.
originally he was kind of being like Chris's right-hand man, right? I don't want to say assistant because I don't know the vernacular, but...
I think they did different things for different projects. Like Chris
Okay.
needs to get in shape for a role. Jared's there doing that sort of a thing, and Jared's going
Kind
to
of
acting classes and
yeah.
doing all these sorts of things. Just both of them fantastic human beings. But they met, and I didn't know this. They met when Chris came down to Bud's to do like a day at Bud's in preparation for Zero Dark 30, where he plays a SEAL. Very smaller role as a SEAL. So this is before Guardians of the Galaxy, before Jurassic World, before A-list stardom. And he
It
comes
really
down.
was, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was Andy Dwyer on Parks and Rec.
Yep.
And then he made this transition to SEAL operator, got in great shape. But that's where he met Jared. And I had no idea. But as I'm sitting down to write the first book in December of 2014 is when I first put some words on the page. It was very natural for me to think as a child of the 80s, who's going to star in this thing that I have a sentence written of.
What was the first thing you wrote in your first book? Where'd you start?
I started with the second chapter, which is Afghanistan. It's the first chapter. There's a prologue, so the second set piece. Actually, that's not true. I started with a one-page executive summary. So I had about 6, 7, 8, 9 different one-page executive summaries written down, and I put them all on the table. And I wanted to start with the third book. I wanted to start with Savage Son, which is the hunting-centric one, because in 6th grade, I read The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell, which was first published in 1924, maybe 1923, but regardless, in the 20s, early 20s. And I knew that one day I'd write a book that paid tribute to that short story back in 6th grade. And so that's the one I wanted to start with. But I knew the characters weren't developed enough to explore those themes, the dark side of man through the dynamic of hunter and hunted. And so I knew, okay, of all these ideas that I have written down here, the Terminalist is the one that's the hardest hitting out of the gate, the best one to introduce these characters. And then when I got to the end of that, I knew that they still weren't developed enough to explore the themes of Savage Son. I needed to take him on a journey of redemption so he could learn to live again, find his next mission in life, his next purpose. So it took me 2 books to get to Savage Son. But so point being, I started with a one-page executive summry, and that's how I've started all of them so far. So what I do is I come up with a title because I don't want to have any bandwidth wasted on a title. I shouldn't say first. So as I'm coming up with a theme, the title, and the one-page executive summary, it's in that stage right there. But I don't want to have this lingering thought as I'm moving forward. Oh man, I need to come up with a good title because all my titles have been good so far. So I don't want to have that taking up bandwidth that needs to be going into the story. But I'll do that title, a theme of a sentence or two that's going to guide the whole process. And then I do this one-page executive summary where I then ask myself, is this idea worth a year of my life, year and a half of my life? And if the answer is yes, then I ask myself another question. If someone's walking through the airport and they go into Hudson News and they grab this thing and they read the inside jacket right here, if it's a paperback, they read the back, would they be willing to invest time in this that they're never going to get back? And if the answer to that is yes, or probably, then I'm all in on that. So that's
do you
where
have
it
to bounce
starts.
that up against your publicist, or do you have the autonomy to just start from there?
Yeah, total autonomy, which I didn't know going in. Because the first one you don't know. You just have to get it as good as you can get it. And then off it goes to, or in my case, off it went to New York to Simon & Schuster. But at that stage, I didn't know. Like, if they like this and they ask me to do another one and another one and another one, are they going to guide this process because they've done it for so long and they have some sort of a formula and they want me to lean into certain things or maybe away from certain things, or they know what works? Zero of that from either the publisher or my agent. And I like that because now I can't, and my only vision of what an agent came from TV, like Californication or something like that with David Duchovny. I had no idea, no touch points with agents in real life.
Or Entourage.
Yeah, Entourage, exactly. So that's my only, that's what I think an agent is. My agent, no guidance whatsoever, which I like because now I can't get upset with her if something doesn't work. It's all on me. It's on no one else but me. And so I can't say, I did this, and it doesn't affect our relationship. So I can't say, you told me I should do this next, and I did it, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So there's none of that. Even if I would never say that, even if I'd take ownership
you might
anyway,
think that,
it's in the back of my head. So I have zero, that's not a consideration at all. It's all on me. Same thing with my publisher, editor, Emily Bestler Books, amazing, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster. No guidance whatsoever, and I love that because I have 100% complete creative control, which you don't have in Hollywood because there's so many people that are working on these projects. But for this, it's just me. So I like the two different ways of going about something. I see the value in the team side of it over here because you're getting all these ideas from just amazing people. But then I also like that this is just me, and if it falls flat, it's all on me. It's not on anybody else. So I like having both of those going on at the same time. So that's kind of that's the process. So point being, I thought of Chris playing this role, seeing him as Andy Dwyer on Parks and Rec, and seeing him in Zero Dark 30 playing a SEAL.
Very
because
different
I saw
characters.
that transition, and I thought this guy hasn't done a role like this before. And this is me in our bedroom office in Coronado, California, a little rental place all those years ago. And I'm like, yeah, Chris, this is the guy, Chris Pratt. And then since I chose my lead actor, I figured I should probably choose my director. Makes sense, right? So Antoine.
If you're going to pick one, you might as well pick them all.
Exactly. So Antoine Fuqua, 100%. I'm like, Antoine will direct. And then a little bit later, I went to the back of books by Vince Flynn, and I was like, why is Vince Flynn thanking someone named Emily Bestler in the back of these books here in the acknowledgments? Emily Bestler will be my publisher and editor. And so I chose them all before they knew that I even existed, which is crazy. And then Jared was getting out of the military, and he was working at Buds. I was the operations officer at Buds. So for those listening, that's like the COO of a corporation. You're supposed to be in charge of the day-to-day operations, but those phases have it under control. The Master Chief and the O, those guys, they
really do.
They've got it. There's not much to do at Buds when you compare it to a SEAL team where you're responsible for taking a team, a troop, a platoon, downrange. It's just different. It's push-ups, it's sit-ups, it's runs, it's swims, it's a curriculum.
You're overseeing curriculum that has existed since the 40s.
Exactly. So I wasn't I had a little time. So I heard this guy Jared was getting out, and I ran into him in the Grinder one day, which doesn't exist anymore. By the way,
I
we
thought
can
that
talk
it
about
did.
that too.
They rebuilt it, didn't they?
I think they moved it, and I think they took all the frog feet off. I think.
Why the fuck would they do that?
I think it's just sitting there now. I don't know. I'm going to a buddy's retirement, actually, my first time back in 2 weeks.
I know they
So
invested
I'm gonna go look.
multi-billion dollars down in the Silver Strand, the south end of it.
Yeah.
I have no desire to go back.
Yeah. The only reason I'm going back is for this retirement.
Other than that, do you have any desire to go back?
I'm good.
I am too.
It's a good foundation.
Yeah.
I'm all set.
I'm super thankful and proud of the time, but I'm so not interested anymore. And I don't know what that means.
I think that's healthy. Because you're building on a foundation. You're not stuck there. Your feet aren't in cement in that place at that time. You're moving forward.
Yeah.
So I think it's very healthy. Yeah, I just said, hey, Jared, I heard you getting out, man. Just stop by the office whenever you have time. Because I have time. So he came and we talked about it, and I introduced him to some people that in the private sector, in the industry he wanted to get into, and followed up with them. And anyway, he told me later that I was the only person that did that, no one else. And you might have seen this in the SEAL teams. I certainly noted it, that when people got out, oftentimes they were just pushed aside.
Not only when they got out, when they made the decision to get out.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
When you let your leadership team know.
When you declared, hey, by the way.
Now you go in the quitter category type of a thing, at least in a lot of people's heads. And I always thought that was odd because I want to help good people. That's the key. Got to be a good operator, obviously.
Yeah.
A good operator, if they're staying in, I'm going to help you do everything I possibly can for you. If you're getting out, the same thing. The same amount of effort is going to go into me trying to help you as if you're staying in. But I did not see that very much. So anyway, Jared told me later that I'm the only person that sat him down and talked to him and cared about what he was doing next and actually helped him and followed up. So fast forward 5 years, and my book's coming out in a few months, and it is the fall of 2017. And I get a call from Jared, and first he asked if I remember him, which I do, and then he asked me if I remembered what I did for him, which I did not, and he told me reminded me about sitting down and talking to him and introducing him to people and that sort of a thing. And then he said, "Hey, I heard you have a book coming out." And I said, "Yeah, I got a book coming out. It's coming out in a few months. I can send you an early copy if you'd like." And he said, "That'd be great, but I'd like to give it to a friend of mine." And I was like, "Hey, who's that?" And he said, "Chris Pratt." And
How did he meet Chris?
When he came down to do the
that's
research
right.
for Zero Dark 30.
And they just hit it off?
And they just hit it off.
Yeah.
Yep. Hit it off down there and it became best buds. So he gave it to Chris. Chris read it the last week in December of 2017 and called the first week in January of 2018, wanting to option it. And
You should have charged it more.
when you have not sold a single book, have zero following on
ever
social
heard
media,
of swinging
you're
for the
not
fences?
Negotiating from a position of strength.
Doesn't mean you can't try. $1 billion. What's your counter offer?
I think they will go to the next. But for me, it was never about that. That side of it is more about growing the readership, growing the audience, and learning how to write screenplays, learning how that process works, learning about everybody that's involved in making these things. And one of the huge takeaways was how shocking it is that one, anything gets made, and two, anything good gets made, because with all those people giving their inputs, there are a lot of opportunities to jack things up.
How much did they try to do that with the Terminalist?
Well, I knew it was going to be different going in.
Yeah.
So the book First Blood, actually today, the day we're recording this, is David Morrell's birthday. So this
I
is
saw you
April
posted about
24th.
that,
So he created Rambo in 1972 with First Blood. Early 80s, Sylvester Stallone movie comes out. Both fantastic, both very different. So I knew going into it that things were going to change, because now it's not just on the written page where you can. Doesn't matter. You're not thinking about a budget with a set piece or anything like that. And you're not telling a story visually. So you can create anything. You can get into the actor's head, or you can get into the character's head. Well, now the actor has to do that with a look over here. So I knew it wasn't going to be a straight adaptation. It's going to be, it's not going to be a straight, like, from here page to script. It's an adaptation, which means things are going to change.
Do you get
And I
more
was okay with
flexibility given that it was on a streaming platform versus like a theatrical release?
I don't know. I haven't had that experience yet on the theatrical release side of the house.
It would be tough, right? Because you ended up doing how many episodes?
So 8 episodes, each one about an hour, so it's 8 hours.
Versus, let's
An
call
hour
it
and a
a
half.
3-hour long, like if it was a freaking Avatar length movie, which would probably.
No, it'd be an hour and a half.
That's what I'm saying. You would have been. You would have had to add some cutting room floor action going on.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought doing it as a series was the way to go. But now you have a writer's room of, I think we had like 11, 12 people that are all coming together to turn this thing into 8 episodes.
So that takes it from book form to screenplay form?
Yep, exactly.
Or script form, I should say.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. So that was interesting. So now I'm learning. So I'm advising on all these scripts, but I'm learning. I'm a sponge. And I got so lucky that the showrunner, and the showrunner is, so in a feature film, a director is kind of the singular point of contact for everything. In series television, because you have multiple directors, you have a showrunner. And so that guy's name is David DiGilio. Awesome. Amazing guy. We talked in December of 2019 for the first time, and we've talked every day since. And incredible guy. He brought me in, and because Chris and Antoine wanted me involved in this. Usually they get rid of the writer right away, the
Really?
author. Yeah, because they don't want you on set saying, "You ruined my vision," because things are going to change.
Okay, I can see that.
So they want kind of just to take your book and then do what they want with it. But Chris and Antoine wanted me involved right out of from the get-go. And so Dave was just amazing. It taught me so much throughout the last few years that now we're co-creating this spin-off series together. And I'm writing one of the episodes. Jared's writing one of the episodes. We have just this solid, slimmed-down writer's room, and it's awesome. So
talk to me about the spin-offs, because there's 2 of them, right?
So there's, spin-off of the character Ben Edwards, who's played by Taylor Kitsch in the series. And Taylor is a fan favorite. My wife is a big fan from the Friday Night Lights days. And
You better keep her offset.
such a great guy. And I mean, he was one of the characters that I think was done better on screen than was developed in the book.
And so the
much
spinoff
further
is going to
developed.
be a development of his character and backstory?
His backstory.
What's it going to be called?
I'm sworn to secrecy, but 2, there are a few options out there, which is also different because I've chosen every title for the novels. Not every author does, but I've chosen every title.
Hypothetically,
for the novels.
what could it be?
There are a couple different options, and we'll see. It's now you have a lot of people giving input on that sort of a thing. So we'll see. I think we're going to test them.
Okay.
And I don't test these. I just come up with them.
Are they all only 3 words?
No, True Believer, Savage Son. So, but they're the ones.
The
that-
Terminal List.
Yeah.
Only the Dead.
Yeah, they're the ones who have been, but so I guess 2 haven't thus far.
All right.
But I like choosing the titles. I like doing that. But now, anyway, you have a bunch of people that are in the mix.
Okay,
here.
so that's Ben's story arc, but there was another spinoff too.
And Chris
right?
is in 3 of those episodes, so Chris will be in that as well.
Okay, so it ties them together. What was the other spinoff though?
So it's we'll roll right from that into the second novel, True Believer. That's the plan now.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, I thought for some reason there was.
And Chris stars in every one of those ones.
Okay, so he did pick it up. It's essentially then a second season.
Second season, yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's kind of like Rambo First Blood Part 2. Well, it's like Rambo 3. Wait a sec, was it 2, 3, First Blood, and not First Blood and Rambo 3? So you got to kind of think about how you title these things now that it's all part of the same universe. So we're figuring that part out right now.
How long does it take him to actually shoot one of those episodes? About a week?
What did we have? 2 weeks per episode?
Okay.
Maybe it was like 11 days, 12 days, depending on which one it was. Something like
If
that.
people
though.
watch back, they'll see you getting killed.
They will. I had to tell Chris that if this was real life, things would go down a little differently.
Let me just tell you, you fucking suck at acting. All right, I could tell that you had never been on camera.
I've never
before.
been shot before.
Well, that's not really a mark of anything. Your acting is atrocious. You should stick to writing. I could tell that you were
Thank
clearly not dead.
You have to hold your breath. It's not. It's because I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
And
hey, Michael, pull that shit up. Jack Carr being killed. We're gonna
That's
fucking.
what I'm
can you
wondering
see me?
now.
Can you see? Because we did a few takes, and I think I did breathe a couple times in there. So I don't know how. Yeah.
We're gonna watch it real time.
Oh, wonderful.
Stick to writing.
As soon as I
what
can
I mean?
find it.
What was cool about that? So the guy. So I wanted to do the crash. So I wanted to do Chris backing up in the Land Cruiser.
Would they not let you?
And, yeah, they wouldn't let me do it. But and then after I saw it, I mean, it's just a fender. It's just like a fender
Yeah.
bender thing, right? It's just like boom. After I actually saw it, I was like, "Ooh, I'm glad that it's because it's a hard hit." And
There's a reason why stunt people exist.
Yeah.
And they have an entire department full of safety equipment.
yeah, and the guy that doubled me, Mick Rogers, legendary stuntman who doubled Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, jumping off the roof, handcuffed to that
Yep.
business guy in that movie. So for me to get to meet him and
That's awesome.
have him double me was really cool. But then I got to after they do the hit, boom, he's okay, everybody's okay. Now I go in and I sit down in the seat. And
you get smoked.
and I get smoked. But what is cool is that I found out how they do the bullets going through the glass, and it's like these little metal straws that are hidden just below the dash, and in each one is a little ball bearing.
Yeah.
And there's a guy over on the side
Cracking
that's
them off.
pressing. Yeah.
Yeah.
As Chris is shooting and I'm shooting, the guy's like teesh, 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 and they're going the other way. So I have my glasses on, have my gaiters on, and
What'd you
boom,
do to your
boom.
gators, by the way?
Oh man, this thing fell out. So I got some. Yeah. This is
Michael, don't tease me like that.
new
You just
ones. But yeah, so the gators
think.
protected the eyes as the glass is splintering all over the
Yeah.
place. Yeah, there I am.
God, who
Boom.
First off, I don't know you at all, Chris, but you're moving like shit.
Oh, come on. He is not.
Yes, he was.
He is
Getting
not.
out of
Look
the-
at that.
look
Boom,
at
boom,
this.
boom. Look at that.
Terrible.
Look at that. That is
Terrible.
awesome. Boom, boom, boom.
Terrible.
And how about 2 to the head right here? Look at this. Boom, boom.
Well, you're
Yep.
gonna go to prison for
Boom.
that.
Look at that.
Dude, did you see how shitty the acting was on that guy in the front seat of the car
Yeah,
getting
who was
shot?
that guy?
Come on.
Fucking trash.
What else was they put the squib in the headrest? So when my brains go out the other side, it's a squib in the headrest that's throwing the blood up in the upper right-hand corner of the car.
He just doesn't move naturally.
Come on.
He does it. It's not his fault. It's not what he does for a living.
I think we need to bring you in for the next one.
A hard pass.
Here we go.
I'd be fired within like
Can you
2
see my
hours.
breathing? Because I'm holding my breath right there. Look at that. There we go. Yep, yep. And up, yep, wallet. Yep, wallet. Yep.
Yeah.
But there's so much involved.
Let's ignore the fact that this is happening in public with people have fucking cell phones. Cops would be on the way. Like, who wrote this
They
shit?
are. On
Who
the
wrote
way.
this
They're-
shit?
He's got seconds to get out of there.
Trash.
He's got seconds.
First
Andy,
off,
to
he
get
should have
out of
already
there.
gotten out of there.
Look at that.
Fucking trash.
Boom, look at that Land
How many
Cruiser.
rounds did he shoot?
I forget how many rounds he shot, but
Because why is there fucking 9 in the windshield? Let me just ask you that question right there.
I think I was shooting back the other way.
Were you though?
Yeah, so it's going both ways. But the Land Cruiser now is it's in the driveway, but
The one that was in that
yeah,
shot?
so I ended up with that. But it's like a lot of things in Hollywood, like it looks good. That thing will not start. It needs a full-on renovation. You know, a lot of things that like look really good from the outside.
Yeah.
It needs a little bit of tender loving care.
People
on the
forget that a
inside.
lot of times in Hollywood, things may not be what they appear. As an
That's
example,
blasphemy.
the finest movie of our time, Maverick, where they're in an F-14. They couldn't find a fucking F-14 because they're a museum piece. So they part and parceled one together with just enough hydraulics to have the canopy come down. And I guess they took it up to Big Bear and were towing it on a cable.
Oh, really? No kidding.
So it's like, yeah, the thing looks like it's doing good. But if you were to put in all the things that they green screened out, like, that's a piece of shit.
Interesting. Well, that movie was awesome. Gosh, that was so much fun.
It is pretty good.
And it was great because now it showed that, hey, you don't need China. You don't need to be worried about the people in seats in China. You can still make over $1 billion, not worried about that piece of it, which was really cool.
There's one problem with that movie. Scientology.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, you had a Scientology guy on.
Fuck yeah, we did. Michael, how awesome was that episode?
That was really good.
I saw that was coming, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it. But why? What was happening there? What was the connection since I haven't listened?
Tom Hanks is a fucking OT8.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Sorry.
No, what was the
Sorry,
connection
Tom
with the
Hanks.
guy you had on? Like, how did you...
I love documentaries. Have you never watched Going Clear?
No.
What's wrong with you?
Where
Who
can I
are
find
you?
Where can I find this documentary?
On any fucking streaming service known to man.
Well, that might be the problem right there, because we finally sit down at the end of the day, and my wife and I want to sit and we want to watch something, and we're like, okay, boom,
Yeah.
and it's like something spinning, or it's like put the password in. I'm like, she's getting glasses of wine. I'm like, what's the password to the thing? It says we're logged out, and then you get all anxious. And
Your
we're finally
password
like,
is probably like Jack Carr 5326.
I'm gonna have to change all of these now. Dang it!
Or it's like
Let's
5320.
edit this out.
Yeah, it's like 5326223 or
every-
like 76.
Every lock. You're giving away every combination to every Naval Special Warfare building and weapons case in the world. So now everyone in Naval Special
can
Warfare
change
is
it.
going to have to change that after this episode.
So I love documentaries, and I'm fascinated by people's beliefs, like my own. I made a point of, the guy's name was Aaron Levin Smith. He got into Scientology because his mom brought him in when he was very young. So I'm not born into it, but for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And I tried to be very intentional at the beginning. It's not a judgment of beliefs. Like, I know really smart people who believe really dumb shit. You know, like, there is a community of people who believe the world is flat. I don't think that they're dumb necessarily. I think that they have a belief system that maybe is a little bit less realistic, but so I'm not going to put a value judgment on the person, right?
It's very understanding of you.
I try. Because maybe I believe some weird shit. I believe that you should be able to fight for the things that you believe in, and some things are worth dying for. That would put us in the very odd category for most people, if we're being totally honest. Especially in the modern era, the modern push to everything should be kind or gentle, and we should be inclusive, and everything is okay and nothing is wrong. But I found years ago, I found that documentary, Going Clear.
And it's his documentary or something?
It's not on him; it's on Scientology in general.
But it's his, like, a director or something? Or what is
No, he's not a director in it at all. I found him because he was on Lex Friedman's podcast, and I had originally reached out to a guy named Mike Rinder, who was like one of the top half dozen dudes in Scientology. So originally I had reached out to Aaron after I saw him on Lex's podcast, who now has put me in contact with Mike Rinder. So we're going to get that done, and that's going to be amazing. But it was just, I'm fascinated by that belief set, and also relatively disgusted by like some of their policies, like the disconnection policy. If you leave the church, like, people just cut you out of their life. Pretty fucked up. But yeah, Tom Cruise is as deep as you get in Scientology.
It's interesting. I saw you had somebody from Scientology coming on, and I was like, what? And then I went on to something.
Some of us who have podcasts are not afraid to explore topics outside of
I thought that was a little bit, yeah. And it did. I think
you could do these things
it did
too
well,
if you wanted
right?
to. Yeah.
People were interested in that.
You could do these things too if you wanted to.
Well, I guess I never really thought about having a Scientologist on.
I can get you the contact.
Probably good. I
information.
was listening to your podcast.
That's fine.
Yeah. Cleared hot.
You could do it. Danger Close is yours.
Wow. Why?
Super close.
But
Fucking
why
copycat.
did you want to? Thank you. I did check with you,
I know
by
you
the
did.
way.
I don't give a
texted-
shit.
What's that's interesting that you would think to have somebody like that on, just because you wanted to talk to them and just
Why would you
find
not?
out a little more about Scientology and how'd it go?
Okay, let me ask you this.
How'd it go? Because I have no idea. Like,
Over
was it?
3
Were you
hours.
just listening? Were you just
over
Were
3
you just
hours.
asking questions and listening and pushing back a little bit and just having a conversation? Did he leave? Was he happy? Was it? I have no idea since I haven't listened to it. But was it contentious at any point, or was it?
I'm not. So he is now out of Scientology, really trying to expose kind of what Scientology
Oh, he's
is.
out of Scientology.
He's out of Scientology.
Okay. Because if he was in, he probably wouldn't have come on.
We talked about that a little bit. He essentially, Michael, didn't he say it'd be really difficult to get a church spokesman on to come and talk about it?
Yeah.
David Miscavige did an interview with Ted Koppel like in the 90s. It was supposed to be like a 10-minute interview. It was an hour. He hasn't done an interview since then. Okay. Some of the questions that are what I would consider to be very easy questions are some of the positions that they hold are nearly indefensible, but they try, right? So it's probably better off if they don't publicly come on and talk about it. So it was more, I had questions about Scientology and the things that they did, but it was
because you saw this documentary. Because
I saw the documentary, and I saw it years ago. Then I saw him on Lex's podcast, reached out to him, and then we just basically talked about for 3 hours what Scientology is. Like, what is the belief structure? So let me ask you this. If you were given the opportunity to do a podcast with a Taliban leader or an ISIS leader, would you do it?
Yeah.
I would too. Why would you do it?
Because I have a couple questions.
Well, you're curious about their beliefs, right? And that's exactly
why.
A
host
why.
Of things, yeah, not just beliefs,
but you're curious. To reduce it down to a single word that might not be the correct one, but curiosity. That's why I'll talk with just about anybody, because it's Scientology. I'm fucking absolutely curious about what is it like growing up with that belief set and then leaving that in your late 30s. Yeah. And then like coming out into a whole different world, like, hello.
Maybe I'll watch this documentary and I'll have a slew
Going Clear.
I
think it's called, Going Clear, the Prison of Belief.
Okay. Yeah, but it'd be interesting to have it's interesting. Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, like from a research perspective now, being on the outside of that, I probably will talk to people like that in the future doing research. I have a nonfiction series coming out too.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
So that's called Targeted, and going back to Tom Clancy
really
in
aggressive.
The 80s, he has
really aggressive there, Jack.
I came up with the title. No one really said no. But like Tom Clancy, 80s, it's pretty much fiction. Hunt for October, Red Storm Rising, Patriot Games, boom. And then in the early 90s, continues the fiction, but starts writing nonfiction. We have aircraft carrier, tank, like a bunch of different nonfiction books. So
they're very specific deep dives.
Yeah, they are. Usually with a subject matter expert that usually someone from the military that served in that capacity. So I always wanted to do the same on the nonfiction front. Like I have no interest in writing a book about what I did in the SEAL teams, but exploring some of these seminal terrorist events that impacted me as a kid, because I saw the covers of Time and Newsweek and the newspaper come across, and Beirut barracks bombing, 1983 was one of those. Like TWA 847 was another, Killy Laurel, Pan Am 103, multiple attacks at cafes and nightclubs in Europe. Yep. But there was a slew of these, and they really impacted me during a very impactful time in my life. And I thought, okay, I want to do this. Which one should I start with? And there really hasn't been the seminal work on the 1983 Beirut barracks bombing. And there's
Why do you think that is?
Maybe because it gets overshadowed a little bit by the 1979 Iranian hostage crisis, perhaps, which is also, we're on an anniversary of that. We're on the operation anniversary today, April 24th, of Operation Eagle Claw today.
Which was...
There's been multiple movies, multiple documentaries, multiple books.
Well, you're talking about Desert One, though, right?
Yeah.
Which a lot of people may not even understand how JSOC came to be.
Yeah.
And I actually think it's the power of like the after action process. So for people who, and you fill in the blanks because I'm not a student of history to the degree that you are, but it was the idea was the rescue attempt for the Iranian hostages. So they were going to forward deploy into the desert, and let's just say some things that shouldn't have collided and lit on fire and exploded and at cost of American lives. But from that, the after action, our country realized that they didn't have the ability to do those type of things. And that's actually where JSOC, the idea of it, was born from.
Yep, exactly right. You had elements that really hadn't worked together before game day, essentially. Yeah. So now, as we know, these different elements from Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines work together now so that when something happens, like 9/11, they're not scrambling to work together for the first time. And that is a direct result of the after actions from Desert One.
Didn't a helicopter...
And a refueling C-130 collided in the desert.
I've been told that those are flammable.
Yeah, well, it was refueling. Yeah, I mean, the plan was pretty audacious. Like if they had actually,
how do you think it would? I was going to say, how do you think it? What was the plan, and how do you think it would have gone down?
Yeah, there's so
in the
many
streets.
There's so many. I mean, it's so cool because you're doing this for the first time. You're bringing guys with Vietnam experience into the fold. They've created this Army Tier 1 counter-terrorist unit just a couple of years prior. Some of those guys who created it had gone through the selection for SAS, so the British Special Operations guys, and now we have American hostages in Iran. It's on the news. So it's not a secret thing. It is out there. Walter Cronkite is counting down the days that these Americans have been held in captivity.
Counting up the days,
and now we have
Jack.
to figure this out. Counting up the days, yeah. And now we need to go rescue these guys. And this is the first test of this Army top-tier counter-terror unit.
What I love is they didn't practice.
Well, I mean, they did practice. They did practice, but
They
not
might have
in the
practiced
way
their
that
actions
we
on the
would.
target, not how do we get to
Yeah,
target.
not the way we would today, certainly. And now you're like, hey, who here speaks Farsi? Nobody? Oh, wait a sec. Hey, and I might get this a little wrong here just because it's off the cuff, but hey, Air Force E6 in Germany, you? Okay, you're voluntold, come here. You two SF guys, you've been, okay, got you. Okay, Dick Meadows, awesome, you. And hey, do we have a plane that can land, a short takeoff and landing plane that can go in there, grab some samples of the soil here at this thing that became known as Desert One and fly out so we can test it and make sure we can land these C-130s and helicopters here and take off again? I mean, so much came together, and that's all the prep of the battlefield type space ASOT we'd call it today type of a thing.
What was their plan though? Were they just going to helicopter to the X?
No, they were going to go to another remain over day point. So they were refueling these helicopters, going to remain over day point closer, and the people who had gone into Tehran earlier were going to come out in vehicles, load up, and go to the embassy, but not just the embassy. There were people in another spot as well. And so they were going to have to hit two separate targets. One was across the street from a soccer stadium. One was going to have to get hit and then make their way to the stadium. But they were going to go take down the embassy complex, take down this other offsite area.
From vehicles.
From vehicles. And meet back up at the stadium where the helicopters were going to land and then get them out of there.
Desert, yeah.
So the helicopters are going to have to spin up again, and for those who have spun down a helicopter, turned it off in the desert, probably it'll start back up. But maybe one won't, maybe two won't. So you have to get those things going
spares.
again. Yeah, bring some WD-40 and get those things taken off again.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty close. Anyways, that's the general gist of how things were going to go down.
How do you think that
pretty
vehicle
amazing.
assault would have gone?
Well, I think that if it had succeeded, we wouldn't have the same type of a force that was eventually created very quickly afterward.
Yeah.
And we would not have been prepared as we were as well as we were for September 11th and the
It's just
aftermath.
that plan, like, hey, we'll take vehicles, we'll go to the front door, either ram it, breach it. We're not going to have any high ground. We're not going to have people on the roof clearing from the top down.
And they may have had guys go up. I'm not sure about that side.
How would they
might
have
sent
gotten
some
up, though?
snipers into adjoining buildings? I'm not positive, but yeah, that was the general plan. But that's pretty bold.
That's
Into the heart
That's
of
a pack your
Tehran.
lunch plan for sure.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. But this is so still early 80s when they are developing this capability far more robust than we had before, based off lessons learned. So they actually took the lessons learned and they applied them in this gigantic bureaucracy to creating multiple new units under a new umbrella to be prepared for situations like that, which is really cool that they did that. Would we do that today? I don't know.
I just love that Delta was created specifically, like their medals are around taking down hostage aircraft. Like they're very good at that. Development group is on cruise ships, and neither unit has actually ever been used for the design purpose.
Yeah. And for a while there, they both were doing both.
100%, yeah.
For a while, and then I think then it shifted. And,
The world just became gray.
And but that's pretty. I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool. Did you ever do the airplane takedown? Did you go up to hostage rescue FBI? I didn't either, but it would be really cool. I heard they have a really cool mock-up up there with smoke and all this sort of thing. That'd be
That would
crazy.
be a tough platform. That's going to be a dogfight the whole time.
I mean, a few units have done it. GIGN has
Yeah.
done it. But
That first guy through the door on that one might take some heat.
buses and planes.
Yeah.
I think that's a complex problem set. I mean, as
Yeah.
a cruise ship, you got a lot of space. And
You got hallways, you got angles. Like, you're talking about a cylindrical tube that you're going to start off on the outside, and
gonna
at some
go
point you need to get on the inside.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
for a moment you're going to be at a tactical disadvantage for sure. I'm sure they have great ways to do it. I actually have no idea. If I'm ever on an airplane that's taken hostage, please send CAG.
Yeah.
Also make sure that they're like super current on it, because I don't know how much they train on it anymore.
I'm sure they must. I'm sure they must, just like hostage rescue team must.
Yeah.
But yeah. So April 24th, so we're on that anniversary. But why has there not been the seminal work on Beirut? I'm not sure. But afterward, there was a lot of tough talk on us standing and fighting, that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And what did we do months later? We quietly left Lebanon. So what does that tell our enemy? It tells them that terrorism works, that this kind of a tactic works, and it still looms large over U.S. foreign policy. So I wanted to explore that. It was so impactful to me as a kid, still looming large over U.S. foreign policy and newly declassified documents pertaining to what was going on in the White House at the time. Who was deciding, or who was recommending that we move Marines ashore? Who was recommending that we keep them on amphibs offshore? And then how they got to be at that time and place. In April of '83, there was another attack on the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, Lebanon, and that leads towards October of '83, where we have the greatest Marine loss of life since Iwo Jima. So looking into that, looking into the personal stories, there's still people alive who are there, and being able to interview them and take these newly declassified documents on the event and try to juxtapose those two, what's going on the ground in Lebanon, what's being discussed in the White House, and how everything came to a head in October of '83. And then what happened afterward, and what happened to the mastermind. And I don't like using that term, but the person who, one of the guys who came up with that plan, what happened to him?
It's an
later?
accurate description.
And that is 2008. So all those years later, he is in Damascus, Syria. Maybe I shouldn't give the ending of the book away, but it's history, so it's not like it's going to be a surprise if you just look it up. So he is in Damascus, Syria. He's number 2 in Hezbollah. He is essentially number 1 of their militant wing, and he gets in his car, a Peugeot, turns the key, boom. And there's a couple differing accounts of what happened, and the one I like is that the headrest.
one I like.
Yes, because it reads like a thriller. So regardless, he vaporizes. But whether it was just a car bomb, whether another car pulled next to him, or one of the accounts has the headrest being replaced with one that is full of.
That's the one I
Semtex.
like the
yes,
most.
Exactly.
Shape charge towards the back of your head.
Exactly.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. And so he is no longer with us. No intelligence agency has ever claimed responsibility, but it was probably one with a little help from us. And so anyway, it's for all those reasons, that is why I wanted to explore this. It has the investigative kind of reporter side of it with how it ends in 2008. It has the newly declassified documents. It has the personal storylines from these people who survived and had to dig their friends out of this rubble, how they had to identify these bodies. And it has this long-lasting shadow over U.S. foreign policy, particularly as it pertains to the Middle East, that we still feel to this day. So it had all those elements. So I'm writing that with James Scott, who's a historian and a Pulitzer Prize finalist. Amazing guy. He has 5 other books out. Everybody should read them. And most of them are on World War II, not all of them, but incredible guy and amazing to work with. So we're writing that together, and that comes out in the fall of 2024. So about a year and a half away.
What I'm assuming you have more things you're looking at in that series. What else are you going to write about?
I need to decide. I need to sit down, and now that we're having such a good time working on this together, good time's the wrong word. We're working so well together on this that now instead of just me coming up with it, I want to talk to him about it and figure out, get his thoughts. So I'm not sure yet, but there's a host of things to choose from, a host of terrorist events to choose from.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, it's not like you have to really comb through the sands of time to find other pretty horrendous terrorist activities.
Yep. And part of it is that I want to, whichever one that I do next, I want to take that, like, what is the enemy hoping to get out of this? Like, what were they hoping to get out of this incident, this attack, and did they get that? out of this attack? What did they learn? What did they move forward? What did we learn? What did we take forward? So I always wanted to write in the nonfiction space, that sort of a thing. Not anything on the SEAL side of the house, although people do ask, as they do you quite frequently, when your book's coming out. But yeah, so that's in the works. A lot of things in the works. Some things I can talk about, some things I can't, but there's a lot.
Tell me about the stuff you can't talk about.
We will discuss it over a pour over at Black Rifle Coffee right here in Kalispell.
How's that treating you?
This thing is awesome. So usually I put in honey, I put in cream.
Yeah.
The mocha was awesome. That's this one. This is the pour over, and you guys did.
What's your resting heart rate at right now? You're at like 32 ounces of coffee at this point.
I had one of the bigger cans, that's 300 milligrams caffeine.
Today?
No. But I had 3 of them in a day when they first came out.
You
They showed
had
up.
3 in a day.
Yeah, I didn't really look
Why?
at it. I was just thirsty. I was just going.
What did you think the 300 meant on the front?
I didn't really take the time to explore the can as thoroughly as I should have.
Okay.
And, I was just awake. It didn't make me go, it wasn't too, I think my threshold might be fairly high.
Did you sleep
caffeine
like a few
these
days
days.
later?
I think it was a little more difficult to sleep that night. And then
Yeah.
I was like, wait a sec. And so those cans are pretty powerful. I actually like the smaller cans, the camel ones.
Yeah.
Are those 200?
No.
What are they?
I think those were right at about like a normal cup of coffee, so somewhere between 50 to 75
Are they?
milligrams.
I like those ones.
Maybe
Those
low
are-
100s.
Those are good, but I go through them pretty quick. But the pour over is awesome. So I didn't put anything in here.
Yeah, you don't need to. A
No.
proper pour over should be very not bitter, very flavorful. Like I said, I recommend that you make it at your house, but you had this litany of excuses as to why you
No,
couldn't.
That's not happening. I need to just press a button in the morning. That's just how it has to.
Unbelievable.
I know.
It sounds like you have a ton
I need my
of-
own coffee shop.
ton of free time on your hands, it sounds like.
I just need to wake up, hang from like those boots from the ceiling for like 15 minutes to align my spine. Maybe
Do you, though?
meditate, journal.
Don't forget your cold plunge.
Cold plunge, but I have to film it too, so someone has to be
You don't
there.
have to film, you have to
You have-
post about it.
Yeah, you have to film it.
Filming
and
is
post
only
about
the
it.
first part. Then you
It's-
have to post.
So you got to do that.
Yeah.
Those two things. I think there's a sauna in there, and then some sort of a workout where I yell at the
continued
camera.
meditation.
And meditation. And I forgot the tea. Some sort of like a exotic peat moss tea.
Also, don't yell at the camera, all right? There's already
Too many-
people who do that,
I
and
know.
they don't need to. But don't yell at me.
No, I don't want to be yelled at anymore. I'm good. I'm good. But by that point, it's time to pick the kids up from school again.
From everything you've already described, it's already 9 o'clock at night.
It's already exactly. but I see these routines that people have so they can have the most effective use of their day and time. And I read these things. I actually look at them and tell my wife about them. And no, that's not happening. Shot out of a cannon every morning from the second I wake up to the second I go to bed. It's work.
What does your day look like?
Well, today I'm up here, obviously.
Obviously.
So there are exceptions, when I go off and travel or whatever. But it's up, and I'm up late because that's when it's quiet. So I'm working fairly late. Harder to do these days than it was just 3 years ago for
What do
whatever
you mean
reason.
you're up late? Like, how late?
Well, I pulled 3 all-nighters for this book in about a week and a half period.
I also heard from other sources, though, that's because you put yourself into a corner and needed to finish it and gave yourself very limited time. And I'm not going to tell you who told me that.
There is deadlines move a little bit to the right.
Yeah, that sometimes
as you're-
people forget
as
about
you're working.
deadlines.
And I'm not a big fan of the deadline because I want to make it has to be the best product it can possibly be. And so as I'm going, it's just a natural thing to write more and have to write more as I get closer to those deadlines. It's just how it is. So I did pull 3 all-nighters. I pulled all-nighters for all of the books, but this time it was a little harder than the last time, which was a little harder than the time before that.
Yeah, that's how that
so
works.
it's different. But I'll be up because it's quiet at night. There's no one bothering me. There's no emails. There's no texts coming in. Everyone else is sleeping in the house. So I'm up late, which
So
means
you're probably up to like 3, 4 in the morning.
the first book I was up till 3 in the morning. And that was in Coronado. No deadlines. It was just, that's when it was quiet. No one's coming around. No one's banging on the door. No interruptions, I should say.
Yeah.
Quiet and no interruptions. So that first one, about 3 in the morning. So between 10 at night and 3 in the morning. So each one's been a little different. The third and fourth one, I went to the local library and I locked myself in those rooms that they have there where you can do study. But usually high school gets out at a certain time and then they show up and then you can only be in there for 2 hours if someone else is waiting. So I got booted for a lot of people working on history projects, like high school kids.
Did they
That's
not
just
know
how
who
it
you
goes.
were?
No. And some people did show up because I mentioned it. And so people started showing up.
I already have the solution for what you need.
I know.
It's a tiny house. You need a little tiny
Maybe.
house that has a bathroom, and no TV.
Yeah, I can't figure out TV anyway. We talked about that. It's
Yeah.
streaming.
Well, that just says more about you than anything else.
Yeah, I missed that.
And your capacity and intellectual ability.
Yeah.
But
It's putting in the password.
oh, it's super tough. I know
And
it's
the
fucking
email.
arduous, right? Like,
And
how
you're
does
moving the
anybody
thing,
do it?
And it goes
I
past, and
know.
you go back, and then you hit twice, and it goes back twice.
I know. Dude,
It's
we
a-
all have our cross to bear,
it's a
right?
lot.
Like, I get it. I
We all
understand.
have our El Guapo.
Yeah, like I get it. I know that
Mine
that's
is the
hard for
streaming
you.
services.
Yeah,
Ugh.
I mean, everybody
And
else
the
on Earth
passwords.
seems to be managing doing it just fine, but I understand you're struggling.
And now you have to get some things from your phone. I think we got the Google TV, but you're using the Apple app or something, but you have to now get it on your phone. We can't, it used to be just you just get it, click on the thing, and it would just charge you. Now, for some reason, I have to be like, yell for my wife and say, hey, do you have your phone? Can your computer? You have to buy
what
it.
kind of TV
I
fucking
don't know.
setup do you
I
have
need
at your
the
house?
Geek Squad or somebody to come up and walk
Go
me through
get an
it.
Apple TV puck.
Is
And
that the thing?
we're not having this conversation.
Yeah,
All right,
let's do this offline.
whatever it is,
It's
I can tell you're clearly not qualified to use it, regardless.
No.
So in your tiny house, you're not going to have a TV.
No,
do you
no.
need internet to write, or do you prefer to not have access to the internet?
I have one computer that has access to the. They both have access because you have to do the updates for Word, but one of them just has Word essentially.
Okay. I just didn't know if you needed to like access email or do research in real time. You
Nothing.
need just a little shack
Nothing on that computer.
on your property, detached where it will be quiet. You can like have it like a 2-minute walk away from your
Yeah.
house, but you could totally set that up.
Yep. I got a
Where you
little
live.
plan for something like that.
Yeah, that's the solution, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the second and third one. Library. COVID was going on, so it shut down for a little bit. So then I had to go back to the really late nights. Last one, I started renting Airbnbs around Park City, and I found this awesome log cabin that I could see our house that we were in at the time, so I could look at the kids with binos and say like, here you go, and shoot the light down to my Surefire. They could see it about a mile away, line of sight, and so that worked great for the last book. And so I went back to do that with this one, and yeah, for whatever reason, just didn't feel right. I don't know why. But anyway, used it for like 2 days and was like, nah, I'm going back. So I think that added, and we had some construction going on at the new house too. So the interruptions from people coming, I think that added some time. So
You need a
just
tiny
got to
house.
adapt.
You need a tiny house.
Maybe I need a tiny house or a little like Airstream or something. I was thinking about that.
Not a lot of difference between that and a tiny
Yeah,
house. So
I
I
know.
would say, yeah, you'd probably be good to go there.
Yeah, something like that. Just plug it in, get some AC going in the summer. So something like that. Working on it. I'm always trying to improve that side of things.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the hang from your boots and have
Don't
the
do
peat
that
moss
stuff.
tea and meditate and make sure that I tell everybody about it every day, like my morning routine.
Somehow the journey became the end state for a lot of people.
I think so.
Which I think you should enjoy the journey, but I also
Enjoy
think
the journey.
having a goal to get towards
Yeah.
is important as well.
I think today you can research how to do something so much, and having a life or routines that are the most that are maximizing your potential as a human being has become an industry. I mean, people go to seminars on it. They buy how to, not just books but online things on all. Okay, eventually you got to execute. Eventually you got to do it. So I could
Not if you
research
get lost in the
how.
journey.
Yeah. And if you love it, that's the other part. Like if you love just being efficient about your day because you think it's going to make you efficient, and then at what?
I don't know how
Whatever
you
you're
pay your
doing.
bills doing that, though.
Well, because you have to be the guy. You have to be the top of the pyramid. You have to be the top of that pyramid scheme.
There's like one or two people at the top.
But you could research how to write a book essentially until the end of time now.
Oh, yeah.
I read
You can
on
research how to
writing.
be a SEAL till the end of time.
Yeah,
At some
exactly.
point, you need to go to the recruiter's office.
Exactly. Research, workout routines, same type of deal, supplements, whatever, all that sort of a thing. But I read On Writing by Stephen King, which is more of an autobiography. It's not like a how-to guide. The Successful Novelist by David Morrell, and all the books by Stephen Pressfield that are really thin. Like each one, they add up to maybe total, maybe 4 hours, 5 hours. You could read them all front to back. War of Art, Turning Pro, Do the Work.
They
Authentic
are actually
Swing.
really thin.
Yeah. And they're fantastic. But essentially, they all say, sit down and get to work. And you're going to have to do that at some point. So you could make your life just as efficient as possible. And then by that point, it's time to pick up the kids and get them to the after school activities and do all that. You've never actually done the work that you set out
Sounds
to
exhausting.
do. It does. It does.
All right.
So I go with coffee.
There you go.
Yeah.
Fill me in on Only the Dead.
Only the Dead. So there's some questions at the end of the last book unanswered.
So start from the beginning. So this episode can stand alone. So people don't have to go back, even though they should go back. Walk me through the story arc from where it started, and then let me know where the Only the Dead begins, so we can get into it.
Yeah, so they all connect, meaning, and I liked books that connected as a kid that had the same character. I liked TV shows that would have storylines that connected, even if most of the episodes didn't. Like Magnum, there were certain episodes that weren't just a part 1 and part 2, but that would go back to previous seasons.
Oh,
And
yeah, all the time,
So
actually.
I loved that.
Flashbacks?
I loved that. And so I always wanted to do that with my novels as well. So each one builds off the other. So you're supposed to say, what my publisher would like me to say, is that they're all standalone. Just doesn't matter. Just start with this one. But I think it's more. I
think they can be both. I would say yours are both. Like it's an individual story for sure, but if you look at it from like a puzzle, if it was a linear puzzle, it connects to both sides.
Thank you for saying that. But I think it's a more rewarding reading experience if you start at the beginning and then go all the way through.
That's what I'm saying. Fill us in from the first one.
So from the first book. So coming out of the gate, hard hitting, Terminalist was the one. It was not even a question. Even though I wanted to start with that Savage Son one, like I said, it was very evident that the Terminalist had to be that book. You can read it at a few different levels. It can be just a action, adventure, political thriller you grab off the shelf as you're getting on your plane to go to the beach for a week or whatever it might be. But it's also really about someone who brings the wars from Iraq and Afghanistan home to the front doors of people who have been sending young men and women to their deaths
with a touch of revenge
at that time. So that was my theme for that one, was revenge. And I got that from Stephen Pressfield because I misinterpreted something he said on Rogan. And what I thought he said was that he would put a yellow sticky next to his typewriter with a one-word theme, and that would guide his writing process. That's what I heard. What he actually said was there was a playwright in New York that would write a few sentences that encapsulated the theme of his play that he had as he worked. I don't know how I got yellow sticky, one word, but I'm glad I did because I had revenge on it. And then I cheated a little bit and said revenge without constraint. So that was the first one.
That seems like a good idea. A guiding
it
principle.
guides it. Yeah, because especially for your first book, if you're kind of like, I don't know what I'm doing exactly, everything had to tie back to that. So it really kept me on theme. And I thought when I sent it to New York that it's going to Emily Bestler, the one person I want to publish this and edit it. Whatever changes she wants to make, guess what? I'm making those changes. And it came back with just a couple of little questions like, what do you really say this here? What do you think this here? And can you explain this a little more here? That's it. And all of them have been like that up to this point. But that one word, revenge, guiding every chapter, every sentence, every paragraph, tying back somehow, either directly or more importantly, indirectly, I think that really helped keep things on track. So I've done that for every book thus far. Second one, redemption. And so that guiding principle had to be redemption. And then I added a violent redemption to it. So 2 words on that one, violent redemption. And I thought it would be disingenuous to the reader to just pick up my protagonist and drop him into a new situation and say, now he's going to save the world from this after the traumatic events of the first book. So, and I thought that my publisher might just cut out the first part of that book. So he goes on a kind of long journey across, I guess I can spoil it for alert. He's on a boat and he has to get to a certain location, learn to live again, take his skills and apply them to a poaching problem in Mozambique. But I thought they might just cut that out and say, do you really need this in there? And she didn't. So that was a big risk to do that. But it also differentiated me from a lot of other books out there. Yeah. And so I really liked that no one even mentioned taking that out, and that it helped to develop that character a little more. And people who like that book love it. Like most people's favorites are Savage Son and In the Blood, my last one. But people that like True Believer really like it. Like they're all in on that. And they love the Africa part and they love the journey part and they love the learning to live again and finding the mission and all that stuff. And I tapped into seeing so many guys get out of the SEAL teams and have a hard time moving on. So I just tapped into that. Just get online. Just look at Instagram. Yeah. But I saw it in real life and guys leaving Buds or whatever, leaving the teams and then calling me as the operations officer at Buds asking if they could give their new boss a tour, that sort of thing. And I always tried to hook them up. Even if the senior level leadership said no, I just wait till that senior level leadership wasn't there and then tell them to come. Because I would always want to hook the guys up, So I saw a lot of guys have a hard time leaving it behind. And thought it would be healthier. That's why one of the reasons we moved to Park City, to make a physical and psychological break with the military and just not be at the same schools, not be going to the same bars, the same restaurants, the same grocery stores as everybody else that we just deployed with time and time again. So, so I got to take that and apply it to this journey that my protagonist is taking across the Atlantic. And then from there, CIA comes in and grabs him, and off on the mission he goes. And then third one, Savage Son, got to go to Kamchatka Peninsula, Russia, go a little hunt over there.
And a little bit of Montana action in that one as well.
Montana action. Yeah, Montana action in a few of them now, but that's the first one that has the a lot of Montana action.
Did you base that in the Flathead?
Yep, sure did.
How did you land on that?
I grew up thinking of Montana as this place like I might be able to get to one day, and
it's still possible.
I always
I mean, like you're literally here right now.
And it was like, back then, it's like a faraway place, and you're just like, man,
there's elk walking down the roads.
Yeah, it'd be so cool to just live in a cabin in the backcountry in Montana. Mom, Dad, why don't we just move there?
Yeah,
like that sort of a thing. So I always just had this idea of Montana as a place where, since I was a little kid, you're just free. Same thing as Alaska. I kind of think of Alaska, in that sense. Now that I've spent a little time in Alaska, but Montana just always held this rugged individualism type of a thing for me. A character in Last of the Breed, which influenced Savage Son as well, is from Idaho. And they talk about the Sawtooth Mountains. And as a kid in the 80s, I'm reading that and I'm like, oh, wow. So I just always had a draw towards this part of the country since I was a little kid. So wanted to incorporate that. So that one, Savage Son, got to go to Kamchatka. And I thought, because for True Believer, I went to Mozambique, put boots on the ground, hadn't sold my first book, hadn't sent it to Simon & Schuster yet. And I always thought of John Grisham. He wrote A Time to Kill first, and then he wrote The Firm. And A Time to Kill, he couldn't give away. And then The Firm hits, Tom Cruise stars in the movie, then they republish A Time to Kill, Matthew McConaughey stars in that one, and we've had a John Grisham novel ever since.
Yep.
But I always thought, like, what if he'd stopped at A Time to Kill, couldn't sell it, he couldn't give it away, didn't really sell. What if he'd stopped? Like, we wouldn't have a John Grisham novel every year. He'd be working in law still, probably, maybe just retiring now, but we wouldn't have this amazing body of work, wouldn't have all these movies. Some of these stars that today can essentially pick projects started in some of those films.
For sure.
So it's pretty cool. So I always thought about that. So I always thought I was going to do 2 for sure, and then if they both don't hit, then I'll reevaluate. But went to Mozambique, put boots on the ground, and got to talk to the professional hunters and the trackers about the poaching situation over there, about Chinese influence in the area with minerals and timber rights and all that. So I got to incorporate that. So I always thought it would be, I need to do a research trip, need to put boots on the ground for each one of these novels. And that was the idea. So I did that with Kamchatka, did a crazy brown bear hunt over there, but got to spend some time in that backcountry, middle of nowhere, and that was pretty great experience that I got to incorporate into Savage Son. Next one, COVID hits. So kind of shut down. So that one, luckily, was mostly continental United States based. So I just wrote about places I'd been before. And then the next one, the one that came out last year, still COVID's going on, especially with the place I needed to go, which was Israel. So that was tough. Getting into Israel during COVID, difficult. So I didn't get to go there.
What kind of hoops did you have to jump through for that?
Well, I didn't go because it was like open only to U.S. To Israeli citizens, and then the next day it was shut down to everybody again, and then it just kept changing all the time, so I couldn't go.
That's how you end up living in an airport terminal like Tom Hanks.
Oh, exactly. So I did a ton of research, and then I sent it to a friend in Israel who had 3 generations of his family read it. So someone from their late 90s, 60s, 30s, essentially.
Oh, that's a wild
And so all of them, they couldn't believe that I hadn't been there and wrote this. That was the feedback I was hoping for.
Yeah.
So I got exactly the feedback I was hoping for. So, because I wanted someone from Israel or who has been to Israel quite a few times to read that and say, oh, wow, he must have been here.
Rings true.
Yeah. So did that. So I need to figure out some more places. I got to put some more places on my list for future novels, but COVID made it very difficult to get a couple places, and that's just how it goes. But that we talked about the Devil's Hand, looking at the United States through the enemy's lens, and this last one that In the Blood was a sniper-centric novel of violent resolutions, and in that one, it's it was tough because I wanted to write a sniper-centric novel that doesn't end up with two snipers across from each other in a building or on a mountainside looking for each other, finding each other at the last second, shooting right through the scope, through the eye type of a thing. Like I needed to do write a sniper-centric novel that didn't have that. And so I figured out how to do that and it ended up working out really well. So I love solving problems on the page, aggressively solving problems on the page that I have a little more time to think through. Battlefield, seconds. Here, months.
For sure.
And if I mess something up in the pages of these novels, guess what? No one's going home in a body bag. So it's nice to still aggressively solve problems, but do so in a way where no one's really counting on me for their life. So I do like that.
What's his sniper rifle of choice?
Let's see. Do I have a James Reece sniper? Yeah, I do in the first book. So is it in the second book? It's in the third book for sure, and something happens to it in the third book. But it's a Darcy Eccles 300 Win Mag that his dad gives him. So it's gone. So now I'm thinking if he has another
300. I was more interested in the caliber.
Yeah,
300 Win Mag's fucking good to go, man.
I mean, and we shot it so much.
I know.
So
I'm very biased on that round, but I love it.
I mean, it's going to do the job, and we know it. So if you shot thousands of rounds at so many different distances, you just kind of get to know that caliber. Like a 6.5, like I don't know the caliber. I can look at my little dope card. I can dial things in. I can hold with my scopes on those rifles, but I don't know the round. Like if you're just to hand something to me without like a scope on it or whatever, like I just the 300 Win Mag, I just know what that's going to do. Yeah. Generally, but all the other calibers, I'm 5.56, 5.56 too, but just because we've shot them so much, but all the other ones, like I need my dope card and I need to dial or I need to hold. I need to have spent a little time with
I prefer to have that at all times anyway. Actually, what I've switched to is a range finder that compensates for barometric pressure and elevation, and it just spits me out my dope.
Nice.
Because I can go like this.
Yeah. I still like to dial, but now the scopes I have, I
dial. But I have a rangefinder that tells me what to dial as opposed to ranging and then looking at your card and then looking at it. Just saves you a step.
Yeah. But I like to hold now too.
Really?
Like I hold a lot more
for wind
now
or distance?
For distance. Yeah. Well, I'm always holding for wind, but
why do you do that?
Well, because I've shot with these different scopes now.
Shoot with like a Horus reticle?
That what is the reticle? What's I'll have to go back and look. No, it's not the Horus reticle. But anyway, I'll tell you.
The one that has like the Christmas tree of all the dots?
It's got a Christmas tree of dot, but it's not that one that you're thinking of. So
you don't know what the fuck I'm thinking of?
I do know what you're thinking of, the Horus reticle. I like this. I have my Swarovski Z6i, so I love that scope.
Oh, now you're going to get technical? Okay.
Well, that's what's on my hunting rifles anyway. And so I can hold with it because now I've put some time on the range holding because I didn't typically do that in the teams. I dialed. Just that's the time I went through sniper school and what I did, I felt comfortable dialing.
I still think dialing is better.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it is. And honestly, I can't think of a hunting scenario where I haven't had time to dial. Like if I have time to pull out my laser rangefinder, I have time to twist the scope.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You just get comfortable
I'm
doing
not
both.
knocking on people being able to hold because you should.
Yeah, like knowing the scope and knowing everything that allows me to have that as an option.
Yeah.
And I
like
think
if it's a
downrange,
snapshot and you see it and you know it's a couple hundred yards, you should absolutely know what your holdover is. But if you're going to take a 700-yard shot, extend your fucking bipod, lay down, range like 4 times. Amazing the number of times I've watched people
don't get the leaf at 300 when you're shooting 7.
Yeah, like you're clearly looking at something. You're like, that's got to be 700-800 yards, and then you go click, click. You're like, one more time on the rangefinder, please.
Yeah. But I like having the option because I didn't have it in the teams, and just getting to know the rifle, know the scope, know the round. It's cool to have that as an option, and for a sniper that's working their way through an urban environment, that's in a dynamic environment, supporting other troops on the ground, that sort of a thing. I would have liked to have had that capability that I didn't really have as a sniper back in 2004. I was dialing as a sniper, but I have the Hunter Zero. I'm a big fan of the Hunter Zero, meaning set to, let's say, 250, depending on the rifle. So 300 Win Mag, 250, it's dead on. So that means that if something pops up at 100 or 300, that thing's going down. I talk about it in this latest book, actually, in Only the Dead. But I like having a Hunter Zero on there just because I know. And I'll dial it back at the end of whatever I'm doing to that Hunter Zero. So everything that I'm pulling out, it's right there at that depending on what rifle it is, but 250 for that 300 Win Mag with the scope and rifle setup that I have, that I know I'm good. Like if I'm going over 400, I'm going to look for sure, and I'm going to get precise.
I go with 100 yard zero. Same thing. Like with
It still has 100 yard zero, but I dial it to that 100 zero. So I dial it to, let's say, 250. And so it's right there. So I know I don't have to dial it from 100
to my zero, which is 100. What's that drop going to be on a 300 Win Mag?
That's what I mean.
250 yards.
So you're
fucking inch.
Yeah.
Put the crosshairs in the center.
But it takes
squeeze.
you, that's like the optimal for 100 to, like, let's say 350. We'll have to look at my cards depending on the rifle scope setup. But like you're good with all of that. Like you don't need to
you
dial.
don't really need, I mean, honestly, like I'm thinking of the ballistic drop for a 300. You're going to be okay. Like 300 and in.
All the stuff we're talking about, like guys were going out with a 30-06, 30-30.
Iron sights.
In jeans,
Friggin'.
iron sights.
Like clean it off.
A red flannel
Totally.
in a snowstorm blizzard.
Getting it done.
And they were, and they would hoist that thing on their shoulders and carry it back, put the mule deer on their shoulders and carry it back to the truck or the camp or whatever.
Yeah.
So, we do tend to nerd out and overthink these things quite a bit.
I actually appreciate the nerding out now. I also didn't feel like I had the chance to really nerd out while it was a different job. And now it's like, oh, what can I put on this thing? What do I want to put on this thing? But I tell you what, I have a safe full of rifles. That 300 is it's like putting on an old pair of shoes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My Rifles Inc. 300 Win Mag is what I love that thing. I like a light rifle. I like a heavy pistol for some reason, but a heavy or light rifle.
A heavy pistol?
Yeah. I just like that. I just like having a heavy pistol.
You probably like 1911s, don't you?
I mean, I'm not against them. That's for sure. I have quite a few. But I like, our 226. That's a pretty dang heavy pistol. Like I like something that's heavy for whatever reason. I mean, I carry the 365 mostly every day just because it's small and has nice.
With the macro now though, with the 17 plus 1, holy shit.
I mean, that's a friggin' awesome pistol.
I had that thing with, so 17 plus 1 with the red dot on that thing. That is, and actually the slight extension of the mag well fits so good in my dominant hand. It's just like, it's awesome. It is perfect, ready to go.
Exactly. I love that pistol.
It is not light though. I'm sorry, it's not heavy. It's just a small pistol. It's a subcompact for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, if I'm shooting, if I have all these things lined up on the table and I have to grab one to go deal with something out there, I'm probably going to grab the heavier, larger pistol.
That's really weird that you would have them all lined up and then something would happen.
It seems very natural to me. It seems like
what kind of
my office.
Fucking fiction writer are you?
Yeah, I like to have the things that I'm writing about with near me, like totems.
That's
so
fair.
I'll take my watch off. I put it on my side. I'll have my tomahawk over here. I'll have a 226 right here, whatever it is. And a lot of times now I'll get the actual weapon that I'm writing about, just so I can mess with it, and I can feel it and I can describe it then, rather than just looking it up or looking at a YouTube video of somebody else describing it to me. I can talk about what it's actually like to run that thing. So I like to do that. I didn't have that option with the first couple of books, but now it's more of an option these days. But I do like a light rifle, so that Sig Cross, very light. I did not think that a folding stock. I was like, whatever.
I wish they would make it in 300.
I think they are. I think
they are looking at it.
Yeah.
I have one from the Sig Hunter games.
Yeah.
And it's 6.5, and I forget the name of the glass they put on there, but it's Bluetooth tied to the rangefinder.
Yeah, it's the Sig glass, I think.
Yeah, God, I'm trying to remember the name of it. But
it's like the BD,
BDX,
yeah,
I think it is. And it'll give you, it doesn't do wind, which I wouldn't want it to, but it gives you, it's kind of awesome. You range it, and then it just a little red dot.
Yeah.
So it gives you your perfect hold.
Yep.
If they made that in 300 Win Mag, dude,
yeah,
that would be awesome. Because that is,
I hope they do.
I don't know why they don't. I wonder if you start bouncing up against like really lightweight, and then just the pressure of a 300 Win Mag round going off.
Maybe my Rifles Inc. 300 Win Mag is light. It's like 7 pounds or something like that, 6.7. Anyway, you can look it up. But it's everything's titanium. It was back when you still had a titanium Remington 700 action too. So everything's titanium, a super light stock. I love that thing. I love that light rifle.
How much hunting do you get to do per year?
I canceled everything last year, unfortunately. Not everything. I did go to Argentina. I went to Argentina last year, so I did get some hunting. And I went to Lanai with the kids, and we went out there for Axis. But I had some stuff planned for the fall that there was just too many projects going on.
So what do you have planned for this year?
I think I'm canceling most everything in the fall again, unfortunately, because we'll be filming, and this next one we'll be filming internationally. So I think something's got to give, and it's probably not going to be the family.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
I'll be overseas doing some filming, and then with the family, I think everything else is getting canceled. I think, unfortunately, unless it's with the kids. So I might zip out to Colorado with the kids. But he got just bought a ranch out there, so get out there for mule deer, elk. If I do something this fall, it'll probably be that. But all the big
You
big
live in a
hunts.
great place for elk, though, too. It's unbelievable.
Yep, just down the road. There's
Yeah.
a very nice spot where you have been.
Indeed.
And it's a great
Even
spot.
outside of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the ranch that we're talking about, but outside of that, there's some great public land
Yep.
in Utah where you live. Very close to where you live, actually.
Yep, this is true. There's just so many projects on the books. It's just crazy. So I think
Where
this
does your
fall's getting canceled.
podcast fit into all this?
As
Let's not forget that.
I know. I'm trying to figure that out. So I've gone from just doing like a hell week of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's great. If every one of those people doesn't have a brand new book out or doesn't have a slew of books that I need to do research, because I do all the research, my own questions, all that stuff. And I feel like I can't fake it. Like if someone's on there, I can't like fake that I read their book. So I've read all the books that have come on of authors who have come on my podcast up to this point.
You know there's another way to do that, right?
AI.
No.
ChatGPT.
You sit down with the person and you say, hey, like, tell me about your book.
I should do
Why
that.
did you want to write it? Like,
I
tell
know
me
I should
about-
do that, but then I feel like that. Why didn't this guy read my book? I took my time out of my day to come on here, like that sort of. I don't know.
It's
I might
their
get past
job as the person coming on the podcast to understand what their message is. You're an author. You can ask like author-related questions.
The other side of that is that I've learned so much by reading those books that things have ended up in my novels that wouldn't have.
I'm not
ended
saying
up in
don't
there
read them.
otherwise.
I'm not saying don't read them. I'm saying,
But it's a great excuse. Like I would probably want to read a lot of these things,
Yeah.
but because there's so many projects, I'll get to that later. But because I've forced myself to read everything thus far, then things have made it into the novel that I'm working on. So
I mean,
so
that's fine.
podcast
If you want
works
to
in
keep,
there.
if you want to keep canceling hunts, I mean, you just do what you want to do. I'll send you pictures of dead shit all
Please
through
do.
fucking hunting season.
Please do. But yeah, I think I'll get out with the kids at least once this fall, maybe because it's not too far of a drive to Colorado to do that with the kids, or we'll get out to Lanai and do that sort of a thing. But like the big ones, I think that'll have to wait till I figure out until I hang from my feet by the
That's
thing
never
to
gonna
line my
happen.
spine
You're
and have
never
my
gonna
Pete
do
Moss
that.
tea. And that's the point. So
You
we'll
just
see.
keep adding stuff. So, okay, so you'll either do the Hell Week with the podcast
or one a week. Try to do that.
Yeah.
But really, I need to make time for the writing.
Do you
And
enjoy the podcast?
I do. Yeah, I really do. But it's a lot more work than I thought.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of people start podcasts and then stop podcasts.
I think a lot of people start them for the wrong reason. I think a lot of people start podcasts and they're looking only at the potential monetary benefit,
Yeah, no.
which I could not recommend
Yeah.
less.
Right. Yep.
If you're going to go into it for that reason and that reason alone, enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
And it's going to be rough.
And you see, I don't know what the percentage is. Someone told me a long time ago of people that start and stop podcasts. And I think
I've heard about 1,000 a day get started.
Is that right? And then
Yeah.
like do 1 or 2.
There are some metrics. There's some platforms that you can go to and kind of take a look at where your podcast may be, like in the ranking. And I happened to look at one the other day. Just this measuring platform was tracking over 3 million podcasts.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot.
That's crazy.
That's
So I don't
fucking
look at any of that stuff. My initial reason for wanting to do one, back when I texted you, was that it was another way. I was getting all these questions on social media, questions that didn't lend themselves to a one-sentence answer on social media. So I thought, okay, if people are asking me all these questions, a better way to answer these would be to sit down in conversation with someone. I learn something. Hopefully the viewer, the listener does, but really wanted to add value by doing it. So it wasn't to make money off it at all. I didn't even think that wasn't even part of my calculus. It was more of like, here's another platform that you couldn't have utilized as an author in 1985 or 95 that I can today to connect with a readership, to connect with an audience, and hopefully add value to people's lives through these different conversations. So that's where it started. And then it was great right out of the gate for whatever reason. But it's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. Because I didn't really think about how much work it was going to be. I just thought of it as adding value to someone's life and being able to answer some of these questions through a conversation.
Depends how
That's
serious
what I
you want
thought.
to take it.
Yeah.
There are people who don't take it very seriously, and it probably doesn't require any additional work at all.
Oh, interesting.
And there's a bell curve, right? I have listen to people who are trying to record a podcast in their car while they're driving to work for about 7 seconds.
Wow.
And then it's like, okay, you're not going to take it that seriously, and your viewership or listenership is probably going to reflect that. And then what you're doing, super high-end, produced through our friends at Ironclad.
Yep.
Fucking cheater.
I went to the professionals because I actually tried to do it by myself first because I'd heard people talk about how easy it was. Of course, these are the same people who can remember their passwords and what emails attached to their streaming service.
Which, to be honest with you, is super low-hanging fruit. Like,
It's
that's
good.
like
It's important
basic
to
life shit.
Know your limitations, and I know my
If
limitations.
that is your limitation, I have concerns for you going forward in life.
I like to have a computer that works that I can just type on and create. So I did the research, and my dear friend Garrett Bray helped me figure out like what kind of a little machine, like that one, that exact one.
That's a Rodecaster Pro
And then
2.
when I came to see you, I saw what you used. So I got that. I got some headsets. I got a camera and a tripod. And I recorded like maybe 10 podcasts. And so I'd hit the record thing on the camera. I'd hit the record thing here. I did it and I recorded it. One on the card for the video, one on the card for the audio. That's it. I'm out. That's all that figuring out how to then blend the two and then how to upload it to what platforms. Done.
Michael,
So-
he needs your services.
So I had about 10 recorded, and then I talked to Ironclad. I was just talking to them about something else because they've done the book video trailers for each of the books thus far, and that's something I wanted to do a little different as well because most authors, even the ones with names that everyone knows like King, Grisham, Patterson, their trailer videos are not the great. The bar's low.
Yeah.
So I wanted to
Low
do
production
one
value,
that
if you will.
was, I wanted to do one that people would think is an actual movie. I wanted to do something different than anybody had done before. And Ironclad was all on board with that. I knew them through the SEAL teams and mutual friends and connections and all that. And they came and they just crushed it. The first video was up for an Addy Award, which is an advertisement type of a Oscars type of a deal. So it got an award there and they've just crushed it every time. So I was talking to them and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this podcast. I got a few recorded and they said, oh, we're just starting a podcast side of the house. And so I said, oh, thank goodness.
Take all of this for me.
Please. Let's figure this out. So we started doing it together. And they don't do anything unless it's top notch.
Agreed.
And like everything is professional. So
I'm working with them now on a project.
Change
You're
agents.
an executive producer. For
I
them.
am.
What the fuck does that actually mean?
It means you just give a little input here and there.
First off, if they ever told me that you gave any input, I'd be like, fuck him. We're not doing that.
I'm essentially your boss, is what it means.
You
It essentially
don't
means
tell me what to
that
do.
I can tell you exactly what to do. Yes.
So far, none of that has gotten back to me. No, what you were saying that like Jared is like executive. What does that actually mean?
So you're an executive producer on something. It can be a few things. You can be attached to something because of it's contractual in nature, but you're not really involved in it.
So does that mean you're
and
just getting a check?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you were involved in something and it's going on to another, let's say another film, second, third, fourth, another series, second, third, fourth season, because you were attached to the first one, possibly, depending on your contract, maybe you're attached to those other ones,
Okay.
but you're not doing anything.
Well, you're cashing checks.
Yeah, exactly. So there's,
Actually, it's probably direct deposit.
Or you are adding value to that,
Okay.
and they want you involved because of what you're adding to that show, and they want to keep you involved either in day-to-day or in editing or in scripts or something.
So it
I
could be
think
a
it
lot
can
or
be-
almost nothing.
Exactly. That's my experience thus far. My experience is very limited.
Well, if you
in-
look
in
at
this
products
world.
or projects that come out, the list of executive producers is often very long. I've always wondered exactly what that means.
Yeah, and I think it's different with every project. So you could see a project that has, let's say, 10 executive producers on there, and you're watching the names go by. 6 of them might have been involved in season 1, and you're now on season 8. They've gone off to other things, and they're just attached to that contractually. So that's
not a shitty deal.
possible. Yeah, that's possible. But like, so Jared being an executive producer on this, me being an executive producer on this, different people being executive producers on this. Jared was there every day.
Yeah,
during
very
the first
hands-on,
very
as opposed
hands-on.
to just being a
And he's writing
check
an
casher.
episode. Yeah, writing an episode. And so it's really cool to see. He was a producer
awesome.
on this last one, executive producer on this one. So there's like a hierarchy to it as far as like Hollywood and how they value how much weight they give your recommendations.
Gotcha.
So executive producer would be the higher part of that. So, so it's interesting in that it can be different with each project.
So what have you done so far on Change Agents? I feel like you haven't done anything.
I told them I can't believe anyone is actually watching this.
Totally. That makes
No,
two of us.
it's amazing. It's incredible.
You know what makes
guys
it
are crushing
incredible? Is that the fact that they do all the high-end production. I sit down and have conversations with
That's
people.
exactly what you want. You want to focus on that.
Yeah.
So your bandwidth is focused on these questions and getting to know these people.
I'm
and that sort of
fascinated by
thing.
other people and what they're into. I don't know how to do any of the high-end production stuff.
No. Yeah. And that's
You dodged my question.
By
What the hell
design.
are you doing as an executive producer? I don't feel
everything-
like you're
every
carrying your
move
weight.
that you make.
Is my
pulling-
choice.
I'm pulling the strings.
No. I don't feel like you're carrying
so
your
good,
fucking weight here at
so
all.
good at
your
it.
bucket of water has
You
holes in
don't
the
even
bottom.
know who's pulling the strings on these things.
There's no strings to pull.
That's what's great
We're
about
just
it.
leveraging your star power.
And you, dun, dun. How many have you done so far?
I have recorded 18.
And how many are out right now?
4.
It's 4. Man, that's a lot. Because I remember when we started talking about this, like when you started recording those, and that's a lot in a pretty short amount of time for that.
They're shorter. Well, they're
But you're
shorter
traveling,
conversations.
You're traveling.
I traveled one time, and then we've had people come here.
Okay.
And then if I'm being totally honest, one of the main reasons I was open to doing it was the help on the production side of them being able to help me find the guests.
Yeah.
Or
Oh.
I shouldn't even say help me find the guests. They are finding the guests, and I can focus on talking to a person, and they can handle all that. Plus, it's like, additional lighting stuff, or like I never used to do remote stuff because I don't like the put a laptop in front of you, and if I'm looking at you on the screen, my eye isn't actually looking. It's super fucking weird. So like having a teleprompter and the ability to actually make like that was all like a level up from a production standpoint, and I just got to focus on having conversations.
Were your first ones video too?
No, the first ones they did a trip up here.
No, your first podcast for Cleared Hot.
I didn't bring video in until I think a year and a half or 2 years in, but they were always face to face.
They were face to face.
Except for a few that I tried to do over the computer. There was some software that would allow for it, but it was not video and audio. It was audio only. I am not a fan, man. Like you and I could do a remote podcast.
We already know each other.
Yeah, well, but we've known each other for almost fucking 30 years.
It's crazy.
For somebody who I didn't know, even if you had the best internet connection ever and it was like 4K, I just feel like there's so much lost.
There is so much lost. They're definitely better in person.
Every time.
And then
Every time.
Technical issues, though, are the worst. Like when it starts
yeah.
freezing, it's just, it's so brutal. So now I'm switching more to in person.
Yeah, so you just had Jericho and Logan up there?
Yep. So they come up. I'm probably going to have to get a place because I had someone up who rented a Dodge Charger in the middle of winter, and we're kind of high up there. We're at like, over 7,000 feet.
You don't need to worry about that.
And
That's a personal choice.
Got up fine.
Yeah.
And then while we were in there, it started snowing. And so
That's
right
not your
off,
problem.
right off the road. So
Not your problem.
my wife had to run down to Walmart and get chains and run back up and get them on this car to get them out and all that sort of thing. So I'm exploring some other
Do
options
you do
right
it at
now.
your house?
Yeah.
You need to stop that immediately.
Yeah. It's I think Rogan did it at his house for a while.
Rogan did not.
He didn't?
Where the fuck did you hear that?
At first.
Rogan would
Let's
bring
look it up.
Hold on.
Look it up.
So
That's what I'm
Rogan
doing.
might
First.
bring his friends to his house.
Oh, maybe they were all friends at first, but I know
Yes.
I'm about 98.
No, I don't doubt.
0.9.
I don't doubt that he did that.
I'll give it
but-
a solid
but
percent.
I
+1.
guarantee you, Joe didn't bring some John, Dick, and Harry over to the house that he had never met and wasn't a friend.
I think it might have been a couple. Let's look it up. Let's go to the tape. Go to the tape.
Have you ever watched JRE #1,
No, I keep meaning to, but I haven't.
Michael? It's
So,
like fucking snowflakes coming
before
down.
that,
fantastic.
Joe Rogan did not ever do a podcast at his house.
Oh, man.
According to this.
I'm going to
Put that
ask
in your
him.
fucking pipe and
Well,
smoke it.
I'm going to ask him.
I'll ask him too.
I'm going to ask him in a couple
All right,
weeks
and
here.
then
Are you going back on for the book? Yeah.
Well, we'll find out. Regardless, you're right. It's convenient,
It's
but also getting
convenient.
people up there and also people like if I was going to have the Taliban guy on or the ISIS guy on,
Or just think about
probably not
people-
going to have them up to the house.
But just think about people that are not directly in a social circle that's close to
Yeah.
you. Like
Everybody's been people I know so far that have been to the house.
eventually, it'll get to the place where you're getting a lot of people. Well, it's probably already there who are requesting to come on. It's like, how many of those people do you actually want in your house? It's one.
Yeah.
So I used to have them host them out at the lake house where you still have an arrow in the tree. But it got to. It's also like one of the main turning points for me was there was a female guest that I was getting ready to have. I'm like, this is weird inviting somebody out to a remote. Like, I'm not going to do that. There's just
Yeah.
need to professionalize it a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, so talking about that, but the main kind of impetus for it is the connection and just being up there in the mountains. Sometimes it's great, and sometimes it just freezes.
Rent an office suite in Park City.
Yeah,
and
just something like that.
It's not. That
I think that's the
expensive.
next. I think that's the next stage. But it is cool to have friends up, and then we do the wild game dinner or something like that, and hang out for a little bit. But it's much better in person. Just you can't replicate that as much as you try.
Michael, can you pull up JRE #1 for us?
Well, I'm trying, but it's on Spotify only now.
No, it's not. Go to YouTube.
No, it's not on
I
there.
think they were on for a little bit, and then
His old episodes are on YouTube.
Are they still?
Go onto YouTube and find somebody screen recording Joe Rogan episode #1.
It's gonna be about 20 pages deep, but I'll look.
That's your job, not mine. All right, I don't want you sitting here fucking complaining about how hard your job is. All right, just do it.
It's really tough.
We'll go to the tape. We'll check it out. But yeah, I
It's
need to do
so
something. Because the podcast studio now it's nice, and I wanted a space that was not just like a set. I wanted one that was usable.
Yeah.
And I have a wood burning stove in there, and you're supposed to be able to actually use it, but then it's not to code. Like if it was to code, it would have to be like out in the middle almost of not in the middle, but too far away from the wall. So anyway, so now it turned into a prop, which I don't like, but it very easily, I just need to move it like 5 feet away from the wall or whatever.
You can make a small fire in there.
And use it like that.
Just
But
do
anyway,
like a small fire.
I wanted a space that would work, so I can work on guns in there. If I've got.
How long are you going to keep this pace? I mean, let's be honest. You are burning the metaphorical candle at both ends.
This is true. At least I'm aware of it.
I mean, that's a good starting point.
I think I said this every year or not every year, maybe the last 2 or 3 years that I definitely need to get a little smarter about how I do things, because there's so many different projects and I'm just running from project to project. And
what
it's
target
crazy.
are you aiming at?
Well, I've hit if there was a target, I hit it, and now I just want to do it better. So I want
to what end though? I mean, are you looking at, is the goal complete and utter financial independence? Is it a number of books sold? Is it a number of video projects? Like at the end of the road for you, what does the bucket of gold look like?
Yeah,
or what's
I don't think it's just all about the journey. And so this next book, After Only the Dead, I want it to be one, better than this book, and to move the genre, not just better as far as me as a writer, but also genre, moving the genre forward, even if it's by a degree, almost imperceptible. I want to move that genre forward. That's always my goal, is to get better with each individual project and move the genre forward. So I want to do that there, continue learning on the script front, have the nonfiction in the works, and then I have a few other projects also that I'm juggling that I'm super fired up about. But it's that, and being the best husband I can possibly be, and creating this financial, not just independence, but for our middle child with the special needs, making sure that he is taken care of for a lifetime of full-time care, which is extremely expensive.
It's a fucking ungodly financial burden. Yeah.
So for 24/7 full-time care for a full lifespan, if you 90 years, 100 years, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So once that's done, then I'll sleep a lot better on the financial side once he's taken care of.
Do you have a number? Okay, because otherwise, if you don't set a number, you're never going to be able to sleep better, because you'll never realize when you got there.
Exactly. So I need to. So I had a financial institution back in 2013-ish. Look at our situation and apply their financial model to it, and figure out how much we needed now to get to a certain number in the future, knowing that we're also at the same time providing for him along the way.
Yeah.
So I had them do that, and it was a certain number back then, but I need to redo that now and figure out what it is now. So that's on the short list for going forward. But yeah, so that's, if there's a goal, that's the goal, is to make sure that he is taken care of for a lifetime of full-time care. So,
Do you think you'll actually slow down though if you hit that number?
I think I would like to have be able to take a breath and not worry about that. Because if I'm not working, then I'm worried that I'm not doing something that could help him.
The projects that you're doing, and this is where I'm way over my skis when it comes to the depth of knowledge. Like I don't know shit about book sales or TV series or any of that stuff. Isn't there passive income that can come from that as well? So as your dossier of work in the greater scale gets bigger, that would hopefully it creates a passive income that could relieve a little bit of the real-time burden.
Yep.
Correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's not necessarily like a passive income, because as you are writing this new one, you're bringing more readers to this, so more people will read this that have read the last ones, then they'll
like a
find
snowball.
this, and then they go back and they read the others, type of a thing. So it's always moving, but also we have less people in general reading today.
Reading in general, or do they read it on a different medium?
Reading in general, but at the same time, there's less people reading. There are more people listening, but you can't compare that listenership to a listenership in 1985 because it only existed on tapes and it wasn't what it is today. So you can't really, compare two things exactly and be able to like extrapolate forward.
Which one makes the author more money, a book or a download?
Book?
Okay.
Yeah, book. But it could change. You could sell a lot more audio for whatever reason that might, even though you're not getting as much from the audio. Exactly.
Interesting.
So I'm not sure. So I don't pay any attention to that sort of a thing. But I'm all just focused on the product and the engagement and building these things out. So I know that Simon & Schuster is very happy, and agents are everybody's very happy in that ecosystem. Yeah. So I know it's
what was the original deal you signed on for? Was it 5?
2 books. Each one's been 2 books.
So you're almost done with your third 2 books.
So there's another 2 book in that's done. So 2 more at least. So yeah, hopefully keep moving forward, and I'll tell you these other projects offline. But I feel extremely fortunate.
What's the best part about it?
That I'm doing what I love, which is writing.
What's the worst part about it?
That's a good question. What is the worst part about it? I guess what we talked about in the car, like trying to do everything for everyone.
Yeah, you can.
And then feeling bad about it. So I try to give anybody that asks for a blurb, I try to do it. I'm sure I've missed a few people here and there, but I don't know. So I try to do that. I just try to, anyway, it's all good. These are great problems to have. That is the point. Great problems to have. But so it's not really the worst part. I wouldn't say that's the worst. It's just, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Subtraction is more powerful than addition.
Subtraction is more powerful than addition. How so?
Doing less is more powerful than doing more sometimes.
Yeah, I'll have to make some
It's
adjustments.
okay to say no.
I know. I need to work
People
on that.
also need to condition themselves that not the answer to every question in life can't be yes.
Yeah.
You'll fucking waste away to nothing if this continues to grow, which I'm sure it will. Like, you just can't say yes to everybody, man.
Yeah.
And also, some people fucking suck, and they deserve a no delivered with a middle finger. I seem to be more comfortable doing that than you. But
You've always been more comfortable with that than me. Yeah. I mean, I understand why why people that are getting those asks all the time all of a sudden just become less accessible. I understand it completely.
Because you only have everybody only has 24 hours in a day, right? It's not like you have more time than anybody else. But what you do with your time, I mean, you can control that aspect of it. You're never going to be able to control all the people who are going to reach out to you. And it's only going to become more and more and more. Like, you think that the additional spinoff series are going to net you less people asking for stuff? Like, hey, Jack, I really am a fan of your work. Do you think you could get this into Chris Pratt's hands?
Yeah.
Like, you need to have a filter in that on your inbox that
That
goes
might happen.
straight to the garbage can.
Yeah, that might happen from time to time. But it's interesting when you say that, hey, it's not how it works or whatever, how it's radio silence on the other end then. You're like,
Here's the thing.
okay.
You will find out who people really are when you tell them no.
Yeah.
For the people who reach out to you and they are smiley glad handing you or grin fucking you, as a term my business partner taught me, which is awesome.
I've never heard that before, but it might
Just
make it into the next novel.
Shaking your hand and just grinning while fucking you at every opportunity that they can get.
Interesting.
They don't show you who they really are until you say no. Yeah, I'm telling you right now, man, in personal and professional relationships, when people get to a place where the answer to their question or request is no, the behavior that follows after that is the real person.
Yeah.
Not the one who's like, oh, hey, Jack, man, I love all this, that, or the other. It's like, that's the bullshit, man. That is bullshit. I am willing to offer my services to you to say no to people.
I might take you up on that.
Free of charge.
Let's
you
talk.
get no creative control over what I say.
Oh, yeah. Oh, jeez. Well, I might need that. As long as I don't know.
I'll be happy to BCC you on all responses, but you get no creative input.
Oh, no.
You don't get to executive produce my
Your responses?
my responses. I've actually
would be
just
funny.
decided I am executive producing Michael's jiu-jitsu career.
Oh, nice.
I'm excited to see where this takes me.
Well, it's not like it could take you any worse. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like you're
come
gonna get
on.
any fucking worse.
Come on.
Come on.
Jeez.
We probably violate some HR rule because I beat the fuck out of him. But he asked me to. Does that make it okay?
Part-time or full-time? Probably makes a difference. I don't know.
We don't talk about those things.
I don't know.
It's not important.
I'm an intern. Unpaid intern.
But he passes it downhill and beats the shit out of my son, so it's perfect.
Oh, perfect. At jiu-jitsu? Yeah.
Dude, Tyler was at class.
Important to say at jiu-jitsu, not, just in general.
I'm okay with it either way. He was at open mat yesterday. He got fucking tuned up, and he's just sitting up against the wall like, I just feel like I don't know what to do. I'm like, oh, in the 2.5 months you've been doing this, you don't have all the answers?
That's crazy, dude. Wow.
That's it. Programmed to that for that
He's
instant
just
gratification.
Like, I just don't feel like I know what I'm doing. I'm like, hey, I've been at this for 4 3/4 years, something like that at this point. Like, that's a weekly thing. So, welcome to the journey.
There you go.
Yeah.
And instant gratification was always, an issue, but now imagine it. But like it was always an issue just in life.
No, it's always
in
been
general.
a desire. I don't know if it's always been an issue.
It's been something like if you fail at something, well, I guess this isn't for me. The discouragement, whatever. But imagine it now with social media, how much worse it is with all these inputs, thinking
when
that
you
someone
fail,
was an
you fail
overnight
publicly.
success.
Well, but also, like, if you fail publicly, you can't escape it.
Mm-hmm.
People from all over
I'm
the
not
world.
even talking publicly though, just like having those inputs for years on end of just seeing these things on Instagram or now TikTok or whatever else, and then failing yourself or not being an immediate success, not even failing, just not being an immediate success, quote unquote.
What if
like
when you
you've
turned
seen,
on
like,
one of
that'd be
these
tough.
apps, for 60 seconds, you got a screen that was just like, hey, the following images that you may see are not replicative of real life.
I don't think that helps, but maybe it'd be
You know what
better.
I mean? I'm not saying, but like, I don't think it would change it at all. But I'm thinking more not from people who are old as fuck like us, but like my kids.
Yeah.
Who, when you don't have the filtering process and you see people who are portraying one thing online, which we all know somebody who's like this, they're just like, life is great. I'm like, actually, I know you're a degenerate alcoholic on your third marriage who's bankrupt, but cool, you do you on IG with your fucking leased BMW.
Oh wow.
I'm actually not thinking of anybody. I'm just throwing a bunch of examples.
I was going to ask you who this is later.
Yeah,
I know.
it's Michael. It's not a big deal, but people who have a few more laps around the sun, you can kind of separate it, right, and see the bullshit there.
Yeah.
A 14-year-old can't, and that's like if there was, I don't know if it would even help at all, but there's some type of warning that you have to look at for the first 60 seconds, like, hey, and the message changes like, hey, people are probably more than likely showing you the best things of their life and leaving out the worst. Like, we're all dealing with problems. You're about to see images of only people. Like, I don't know if it would make a difference, but it would be at least a more balanced approach.
Yeah. And it's not even just someone who's a public account. Anything that anyone posts on it, it's an advertisement for something. It's their life with their wife or husband or kids or vacation or whatever else. Even if it's a private account for family and friends, that's advertising something. That's why I try to tell the kids, like, everything out there is essentially an advertisement, even if you don't mean to, because you can't capture how much work goes into doing this. All people see is the end. On the way, I'll share a little bit on the computer screen or something like that, and whatever. But you're not seeing how much goes into this, and that goes across the board. They're not seeing how much goes into this podcast. They're not seeing
This
all
is like
this
years
stuff.
of evolution.
They're not seeing all those years of evolution. They're not even thinking about the baseline before Buds and the SEAL teams in your foundation. And they're not seeing all those years. They're hearing a couple stories here and there, but when you post a picture with a great guest that you had a wonderful time with, or an amazing hunt somewhere with this incredible animal.
Must be fucking nice.
Yeah, you're not seeing all that work that went in as you're continuing to build and learn and fall and get up and all those things. You're just not seeing that. And a photo doesn't capture that. A video doesn't capture that. Even us talking about it doesn't capture it for the next person that goes on and sees whatever I post tomorrow. As much as you try and don't want to manipulate somebody there, you want to share your journey, they're just going to take that photo and this end state. They're going to see the terminal list up there on Amazon Prime, #1 Amazon Prime show. Okay, they're going to see #1 New York Times bestseller. They're not going to see all the years of reading and research, both on the fiction side of the house, warfare, studying Joseph Campbell and The Hero with a Thousand Faces, going to war, taking those lessons, applying them to the next deployment or the next mission even, having that responsibility of making the right decisions under fire for the guys to your right and left, knowing their families, knowing the mission, thinking about how to translate things from that strategic level, what are we doing here, down to this, hey, we're going to get this, knock on this guy's door tonight or kick this guy's door in tonight, and this is why. And having all of that be part of your foundation that ends up in this one picture on Instagram that you're going to scroll through and it's going to register for a kid as overnight success type of a thing, if that makes sense.
If you were king for a day, would you turn off social media?
I certainly think that it has not done what the not the founders, but the base level people who started developing social media, essentially at Facebook and a few other places. I don't think it's done what they intended. I have to think that as you're a college kid, your intentions are fairly pure, that you want to connect people, make the world better, make some money, whatever it was back then.
Yeah.
But it certainly was, hey, let's create this thing that's going to turn into a monster and it's going to divide not just the country, but the world. I don't think it started that way, but it certainly is what it has become.
What do you think would happen if we turned it off?
Well, I don't think we can turn it off, but if you did turn it off, I think things
Listen,
would be much
in my fucking hypothetical
better.
world, which you're now the king of for a day, and you turned it off, what do you think would happen?
Oh, I think you have to go back to putting in a little more work. One, because you have to, because you don't have the
riots in the street,
distraction.
I think.
And two, because it's something it's not being weaponized to either to elicit a response, whether that's for advertisers or it's to elicit an emotion or it's to galvanize a base, whatever it is. That's no longer there. So now if you want to actually be productive and do something, well, you have to put in the work. And what does that mean? Well, it means, in this case, reading, or in this case, actually leaving to go and talk to people and express your ideas and debate them in this marketplace where the best idea rises to the surface and benefits us all. Now we don't have that. Now all we have is the division part. All we have is a sentence debate going back and forth, and the best ideas aren't necessarily rising to the top. The loudest voice, meaning the person that has the most followers, those things rise to the top. And then you get a bunch of people arguing underneath who are not spending their day productively because they're on these platforms. So I think that ended up in a place that does not benefit our country, the citizenry, or the world in a beneficial, positive way, unfortunately.
Agree. Michael, you grew up with social media.
You grew up with it? How old are you?
23.
What do you think would happen if it got just shut off? I think there would be huge outrage for like a few days until people had to get on with their life, and then I think our society would be way better.
Yeah, I think it would be for the better. I use social media and it's nice, but there's a lot of times where I'm just like,
do people reach out to you about the podcast?
No, thank the Lord.
What's your username?
Michael Shelton 7.
Perfect. There you
You
go.
want to come
people.
on Cleared Hot? Just leave a DM.
Yeah, just
I tell you what,
shoot me
Michael
a
likes.
message.
Well, you know what Michael wants if you want to get his attention is a big old dick pic. I mean, that's what I would say.
That'll do it.
It's a fucking huge cock.
Make sure it's black.
That's super racist. I mean, Michael said that, not me, but
Turning off social media, though. I mean, you don't think the cat's out of the bag, as they say.
I know. I'm thinking about the impact that it has had, and I think people would absolutely hate it, and I think it would move our country in the right direction.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's.
Montana.
I don't know how you can
TikTok.
make the opposite argument.
Montana banned TikTok. I think.
Really?
Conceptually, I don't
Really?
know how the fuck that works, but
No.
I saw an article about it. It has to be true.
Really? Just get a VPN and get it elsewhere?
I think with that bill they're trying to pass, VPNs would be illegal.
Oh, really? In general?
Yeah.
So I looked this up because I was talking with a friend about it.
Yeah.
The proposed bill would ban any effort to get around their ban. So a VPN would be in that umbrella term,
Yeah.
but so would a bunch of other things.
Now I just wonder if it's just a power grab.
I don't know what you want from this country, but
VPNs.
I want our government to have more power and insight into my life. What are your thoughts on that?
They have proven themselves.
They make decisions
responsible.
for my benefit constantly.
It's pretty wild. Like I said, it's going to get depressing again.
Do you
thinking
think
about
that
all
our
the
current
things that are
system of
dragging us
government
down.
is salvageable?
That's the big question. That's the big
What are
question.
your thoughts?
It's going to be a very, very tough mission.
If you were the Democrat,
And by salvageable, I guess you have to define what salvageable means. But if you mean like a return to more freedoms, more opportunity for
or
the
a functional
citizenry.
government that is actually benefiting the people that vote those elected officials into office.
Yeah, because it continues to grow. Budgets continue to grow, and more people dependent on this ecosystem. So I don't see how you also, at the same time you're growing these gigantic bureaucracies, you also go back somehow to giving the citizenry back more freedoms. It's about, it's about control. It's about power. It's about control. And the government certainly isn't about to relinquish any of the power or control that they've accumulated over time.
Most
back
people,
to the
when they
citizenry.
get power, they want to give it back.
They're not giving. Hey, some people have.
Fuck.
Some people have.
Yeah.
George Washington.
If we were to list out the number of people that
Two.
have
Probably
versus
two.
haven't.
Two.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 or 3.
If you were the Democratic Party, who would you run in 2024?
Ooh. Sorry. Oh, I don't know.
This is what we talk about here.
Yeah.
Fucking deep questions.
Yeah. No.
Would you run Biden again?
Oh.
How can you? I don't understand how you could.
I mean, it's.
I can understand people who absolutely hate Trump. Like, I get it. Like, there's a lot of qualities about that individual that really have room for improvement.
I mean,
What I mean by that are galactically fucked up.
it's so hard. It is. I mean, just look. Videos, press conferences, answers to questions.
He was actually incredibly articulate. Like, recently some older videos have come up in my feed. First off, the fact he's been in politics as long as he had should be a disqualifying factor.
What is it, 71? Something like that? What year? Something like that.
Oh, I don't know. He's been in politics longer in his life than he's been out of them. But earlier on, he, when he would talk about things, and I'm not necessarily saying the topic or the issue, his ability to articulate was extremely better than it is now.
It was a little different. You see those old videos, they play them back to back today.
Yeah.
But over time. I mean, you're like, how old is he? 105?
He is 84.
Close.
No, I'm sorry. He's 83 because I was just reading an article. He would be, if he runs in 2024, he would be 88 if he wins.
Yeah.
If you had asked me to list the number of things that I would want an 88-year-old to be in charge of, I would need some time. Like, I would say, like, wiping your own ass. That would be one. Picking whatever food you want to eat.
Perhaps there was a reason that they had a council of elders back in the day that advised.
Sometimes, though, they advise those elders to walk out into the woods and not come back.
In the winter. In the snow.
I'm just saying.
That's true.
And I'm not saying that's right or wrong either. Okay, who would you run if you were the Republicans?
I'm just going to watch it all. It's disheartening to see this whole thing.
Yeah, but so if you had to put, who would you say, who would be their best bet to win? Oh. I'm pinning you down now. These are real issues.
These are real issues. But then again, I see a poll number just as I'm going through my day.
Yep.
It's on something. It pops up on a podcast. It pops up on an Instagram feed. I'm walking by and the news is on in the house as I'm going. So I'm not exactly sure if you can trust these poll numbers, but do you run the person that has the strongest poll numbers,
which right now
that
I believe is
continues
Trump,
to divide, or
could the country survive 4 more years if Trump were to get
so much
elected
hate?
again?
People on the left hate him so much they are willing to destroy the entire country, just I think out of spite. That's probably not healthy.
Do you think we'll see another civil war?
The only thing that gives me hope, we talked about hope earlier, is that we managed to come back together after an actual civil war. But guess what we didn't have back then in the 1860s?
COVID-19.
Social media.
That's true.
So I wonder if in the 1860s, if we had social media, what the country would look like today.
Can you imagine
because both
selfies
sides,
with wooden teeth?
both sides could be using it to
and they would
continue to divide, using it as a weapon. And that's what we can do today. So on one hand, it gives me hope thinking about that. On the other hand, I realize that there are forces at play that weren't in play back then.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I do not know.
I hear people calling for civil war. It's a term that's thrown out far more flippantly than it should be. I hope we don't get to that point because I really don't want people to experience what we experience professionally.
Yeah.
I don't think they understand what they're asking for.
Yeah. Well, it's like we've come to this point where we have 2 children and they need to be separated. They need to go to their rooms because they're misbehaving. And that's what it feels like politics has degenerated into. So let's say you send those 2 kids to their room. What does that mean? You draw a line down the middle of the country? Maybe. Imagine, go to your rooms. Left over here, right over here.
Fuck.
I'd say we take a little bit from, let's say, a little bit east of the Rockies, all the way to the West Coast to include Alaska and Hawaii, and everybody else goes to the other side. And then you just, you trade back and forth. Whatever you need to do. You have a border right down the middle of the country.
Who gets like Louisiana?
Where does that end up? I think that ends up on the east side. Yeah.
There's some fucking weird people there. I want to make sure they're not on our side.
But this side,
there's some sister cousins there. You know what I'm talking about? Look,
I haven't put that much thought into that side of this whole thing. In fact, I'm thinking of it for the first time now. But I mean, you have natural resources. You have ports. You have gas and oil. You have everything you need, and you have the producers and the takers. Essentially, go to one side. The producers over here. We reinstill a respect for what was sacrificed so that we can have these amazing options and opportunities to include the Bill of Rights and all the amendments.
So say
and
we
other
split
side, they take those rights away. No free speech, no Second Amendment, all those sort of things. That's on the right side of the country. High taxes.
Who does
that
the military
side.
work for?
I think you can still split it down. Hey, if you're
You split the military down the middle?
Yeah, I think you
Oh,
have.
fuck.
Yeah, I think you have to. Yeah. Or
Could we put, hold on, since you're running this plan,
hypothetical.
can we put a nuclear sub in Flathead Lake?
I don't know if you'd want to put a nuclear sub in Flathead. We discussed that one. Maybe you need to.
It's an option.
Maybe you need to go to the right. Swipe right.
It's pretty deep.
It's pretty cool. You put it in there and it just sits there, but then
I'm
it's
just
like
saying,
a silo.
It's like, hey, nobody fucks with us because we have one of these. Maybe.
Yeah. You never know. Sometimes the unknown piece is more powerful than actually.
All right.
Putting
Since
it
you're
in place.
advocating to splitting the military up, I mean, holy shit.
Well, but you can go either way also. So if you identify with things that are more left leaning, which today essentially is censorship and taking away the ability to defend yourself and your family and your loved ones and the gift of life, you go this way. High taxes that way, all the rest of it. This way, if you're in the military, over here, there'll be military people that go to that side. That's fine. Yeah. Let's just see who does better. I guess there's it'll be an experiment. It's an experiment. That's all it is.
The biggest problem is that nobody fucking knows what's going to happen. I tell you what, I'm not looking forward to is the next election cycle.
Oh boy,
at all, not even like a little bit.
It's all so disheartening.
It is
depressing me more than
I just feel like it's largely an embarrassment of the United States to the rest of the world. Like, hey guys, check this out. You don't need to do shit. Just grab some popcorn and watch us destroy each other.
Yep.
Not good.
No. And your moral standing falls, of course, and maintaining that moral high ground is something that was important for a long time. He seems to have lost it. It's important on the battlefield. It's important that you, as a leader, you talk to your guys about that so you know how important it is to maintain that moral standing on the battlefield because it is one of the very few things that differentiates us from the enemy. Yeah. And we seem to have lost that across the board. And there are people out there fighting. I don't want people to think that I don't think there are good politicians or good military leaders out there. There just happen to be a lot more of the other that drown them out, and those good intentions fall by the wayside over time because you're up against it now, just because of the sheer numbers and the sheer size of this bureaucracy, and by numbers of people and of budgets, it's tough. It's tough, but it gives me a lot to work with. It does give me a lot to work with. It gets me. This is where I explore these themes, or in the pages of these novels.
Do you already have the next one figured out?
I have a few different ways to go, and this one ties up a lot of loose kind of questions that were left out there, loose ends from the last few novels. Ties a lot of them up, almost all of them up in this one. So, which is great because it gives me a lot more freedom of where to take it next. Yeah. So when I get off this book tour, I'll take a breath, and I have about 4 or 5 different one-page executive summaries now for where to go next. So I'll narrow that down here over the next few weeks as I start thinking about it a little more, and then off to the races probably by late May.
So you've mentioned the book tour. When does it actually come out, and when are you going to go on tour?
May 16th it comes out. So May 14th is my first event at Poison Pen in Scottsdale. Then out to Austin the next day, and then just go through the next week and a half, different places around the country. And last one was crazy because there was 2 book tours that were virtual because of COVID. So last one was the first one back after 2 books that where I couldn't travel.
Yeah.
So it was pretty wild. It was amazing, and so many police, firefighters, military, EMTs in the audience that comes to these book signings that bookstore owners tell me aren't usually the people that are coming for other authors. So that's really cool to have all those people in the audience. I love that. But it was pretty big. It was this time my publicist is coming with me. Thank goodness. Shout out to David Brown, amazing guy. Last time it was just me, and it was crazy because I'm signing books till well after midnight at most of the venues, and then back to the hotel. I'll grab something out of the. These are great problems to have, by the way, for anyone that's going to be like complaining. It's not complaining at all. I felt honored to have these people coming and to be staying so late and all that. Grab something out of the vending machine at the hotel. Up for the first flight out to make it to the next event. So that's like 3.5 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep for 2 solid weeks on end. So this one's a little more sane, and then I'll have somebody with me that can help with all of that.
Has anybody ever given you a book that I've signed for you?
Not yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
What are your thoughts on me signing books for you? Usually endorsing them to myself. And how was
at least you endorse? At least you do that. At least you do that. So when someone opens it, they know exactly that it's not me. So I do like that.
I feel like they have an exceptional amount of value.
They might. Time will tell. The marketplace will dictate. So we'll see. It's quite possible.
All right. I'm just glad that, because people are like, do you tell him? I'm like, oh, he knows. I post directly about it when I do it and tag him.
I do not repost.
So you have your official book tour, but we were talking about at the coffee shop. Can I get you to come back up to Kalispell to do, what did you call it? I just call it like a one-off, just because it's not part of the actual book tour. So come up and grab some more of this awesome pour over coffee Let's
here.
do
which is
an
amazing.
afternoon book signing and let people know a little bit ahead of time.
Yep.
And I'll get a bunch of the book, or people can. How do you usually do it? Do you sell books there, or do they bring the book already?
Usually, anybody can bring any book to my signings, but they're usually in support of a local independent bookstore. Yep. So especially for a launch like this, it'll hit, and you can't really get it until it's out. So that's that first week, 2 weeks, where people come to the bookstore, they have them available, and then I sign them and whatever else, say hi, get some pictures, that sort of a thing. So
I will also be signing next to you when we're there. Not my name.
People will get
Yours.
both. I think people would get. Well, I think the majority will want both. That's a guess.
They'll get your Jack Carr signature and then my Jack Carr signature.
Well, yours is the Andy. You sign him Andy.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
No, I sign him Jack Carr.
I don't pay attention.
I say to Andy. Generally, it's like, thank you for being my main inspiration throughout my SEAL career.
That's right. Yeah.
And I just scribble what I think looks like Jack Carr.
Wonderful. I'm sure people would get both, but it'd be fun. No, it'd be awesome. I'll come back up here. The coffee place it's amazing. Like it's way bigger than I thought. Yeah. Because I saw it under construction. I saw it from first it was just a block of
there really wasn't that. Yeah,
real
the
estate.
last time you were up here, there wasn't that much.
And then it was being built the last time. So I saw it from maybe it was the structure that was there before. I'm not sure, or if it was just vacant. I can't really remember.
The brick building would have been there before.
That's it. Brick building first, and then I saw it starting to get built, and then to see it finish is really cool. To see it all done, and it is awesome. That fireplace inside, a lot of room to hang out and just enjoy a lunch and grab a coffee. I loved it. It was really cool to see, and the outside area cool with the fireplaces and stuff. When that gets rocking, that's awesome.
It's going to be bitching.
Yeah, I'm fired up. We'll do it. Come back up and do a book signing up here. People ask me all the time to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, it's a great place to do it.
They're like, when are you going up to Andy's place? And so we'll do it.
Or just tell them you'll be there and I'll sign the books for it. It's not a big
Perfect. That makes it a lot easier.
What do you want to close it with? We've been talking for over 3 hours.
Man, have we? That's good. Well, we're going to go back to the coffee place. We're going to grab some more Black Rifle coffee. We're going to grab maybe a little
I don't
lunch.
drink coffee past 3 p.m., but you can do whatever you want.
What time is it right now?
3:07.
Jeez.
We got to get you back to the airport in a little bit.
Yeah, I got to go. Busy times. But man, I try to end things positive because there's so much that's depressing out there. And a lot of that is
just
highlighted.
Embrace it, dude. Wrap your arms around that shit.
Channels.
We're all fucked.
Because it's a weapon. Those social channels are so easy to weaponize. So
yeah, but they're voluntary.
Yeah, it is. That's why it's so dangerous. That's why.
Yeah, they're
you
easy to
have
weaponize, but like
as an
control
individual,
yourself, people.
exactly. That's why, as an individual, you have to really take note and realize that most everything that we see is an effort at manipulation in one way, shape, or form. So make your decisions accordingly.
That's a good close right there.
Is that a good close?
I think so.
All right, let's do that then.
And then just embrace the darkness. It's all going to end.